are green here in the 2021 SCO Sprint Masters. 3 wide into turn number 1, flying their way down into turn number 2. They are 2 by 2 back in the pack.
Oh, that is not a good place to go 3 wide. That is absolutely not a good place to go 3 wide. Was not expecting that. Collecting back in the front, where he would have been very impressed. And there we go, off onto the left.
Look at the drop, now to the inside, a little bit deep under the brakes. He parks it on the apex.
Now it is going to be paramount for Kova to make the position. They have done.
Battle for the race lead. It is side by side. Toivonen and Warren in toward the hairpin.
To the front of the field, Pekka Toivonen potentially going to be passed by Warren, but absolutely not. The BMW finally hits the front.
And we are green flag racing in race number 2. Side by side on the exit of pit road, and Ultra Esports are going to have to defend from Kova and Thomas Tattler. Here comes the move from Kova as Tattler's going to get on the path.
John Crosby's going to the undercut and pass back up the inside. It's defended really, really nicely from Thomas Tattler. The chance to get the runner-up spot, but then there is the dive.
Charlie Collins takes the checker flag in round 2 of the SCO Sprint Championship. Last week, GT3 competition returned to the top level of the iRacing service as the VRS SCO Sprint Challenge debuted from Hockenheim. The GT3 cars have made the short trip over to sunny Spain, with just 7 kilometers separating drivers from the border and the beaches here in Barcelona. It's time for races 3 and 4 in the road to $25,000. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and continued coverage of the VRS SCO Sprint Masters. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, delighted to be joined by Lewis McLeod as always, with Hugo Luis, former iRacing World Champion, down in the production booth. Lewis, it's fun to be here in Barcelona, a track that's only been around for about 20 years but has so much history in the real world. It debuted on the iRacing service last year. It makes its debut in Sports Car Open competition here today.
Yeah, opened in 1991 to coincide with construction of many sporting events in Barcelona to host the 1992 Olympic Games. Actually hosted one of those Olympic sports, being the Cycling Road Championship there. A fantastic venue that is starting to make its name in the history of motorsport, and well, we can add to that today. Yesterday was some pretty insane racing, it must be said. I get the feeling we're going to see some more of that today.
Absolutely. The GT4s were in competition yesterday. The GT3s here today. 2 races done out of 12 on the road to the $25,000 prize pool. We head to Spain before Belgium next time out for the first of 3 back-to-back races. The swing of back-to-back races. We'll have a little bit of a break. We'll have the VRS SCO 24 Hours of Spa before 3 back-to-back weekends to finish things off. And Lewis, what an interesting format this season has, and what an exciting opening weekend we got to see.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 qualifying, 2 races, 2 drivers in each team. And what that means is we're going to see a driver do... Each driver has to do qualifying, each driver has to start the race, each driver has to finish one of the races. And what that means is that we are looking for the complete package as a team. It was all about Kova and VRS Coanda last round in that kind of battle. They look like the complete package, but it's not necessarily sorted. There's plenty of other teams that look like they could be involved in the mix as well. I mean, look at the likes of Arnage and maybe even plenty of the other ones coming up the order.
And well, we talked about the format here. Let's talk about the point structure, the prizes, and then let's talk about the standings, because you said it last week, Lewis, it's a point structure that those who are familiar with MotoGP will understand well and truly. 25 points to the race victor, just 1 point down to 15, and with up to 30 cars in each of the grid, that means half the field will walk away without points from each race. Fastest lap, that's in qualifying, and that of course means 2 bonus points for every race weekend, but ultimately they are all fighting for their share of $25,000, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. An incredible prize pool. Very, very large, of course, but we're obviously more focused on that prize for winning the championship. $7,500 to split between the team, which is not bad for a season's work. It's going to be intense between the teams fighting out for the title, but it is still a long season. We're in the early stages. The championship fight is just starting to brew. So where that prize money is going to head, well, we have absolutely no idea.
Well, after 2 races, it was Kova and Coanda, but not the Coanda car that you might have expected. It was Dane Warren and Charlie Collins, very much the consistent performers across the first 2 hours of racing. Kova and Coanda, they're only separated by a single point. You do have to go then a further 20 points down to Arnage Competition, the second of the VRS Coanda cars, before you get to R8G rounding out the top 5. There were some post-race changes that we should briefly highlight here, Lewis, because someone like BS Competition, who had a stonking drive in race number 2 with Phil Denez, really saving the tires in the closing stages to be able to hold on to a podium position. They got disqualified from race number 1, and while Altus Esports were very strong across the weekend, disqualifications from both of the first 2 races means they don't have any points on the boards.
Yeah, that comes down to breaching part of the rules that we were handed out is violation of prepare for the boring stuff. Article 9.4, which is more so to do with qualifying. It's about not escaping during the qualifying. This open session means we have to go out onto the track. You have to go out there, do your out lap, do your time laps, and most importantly, return to pit lane. If you don't do that, well, you get lunched with a pretty spicy penalty that you make that mistake once. You don't do it 2 rounds in a row.
And well, I tell you what, qualifying is only about 5 minutes from getting underway. Last time from Hockenheim, we got a wonderful track guide with Joshua Rogers, your Porsche Tagor Esports Super Cup champion. This time, though, we caught up with one of the nicest guys in all of sim racing. Let's have a look with Jamie Fluke here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya.
Welcome to the VRS Circuit Walk for round 2 of the VRS SCO Sprint Series at Barcelona. I'm VRS driver coach Jamie Fluke, driver of the number 99 Apex Racing Team Lamborghini Huracan GT3. One of the most utilised tracks in motor racing, Barcelona is a common stop for any European-based racing series. What makes this stop unique though will be the layout, as we're racing on the historic layout which sees the faster hairpin and the faster final 2 corners. This will raise average speeds quite a bit and really put an emphasis on aerodynamic balance, as too much drag will see you slow down the straights, but too little downforce will see you struggle in the fast sweepers. Let's take a closer peek at what this layout has in store for the drivers. Right at the start, we can't ignore the 1 kilometer straight to start the lap. You'll be hitting about 255 kph as you enter the braking zone, and this will easily make turn 1 the best passing area on the track. However, you have to be committed into turn 1. If you fail to complete the pass, the switch back through turns 2 and 3 will allow cars to make moves as the advantage flip-flops from corner to corner. Turn 5 has a lot of potential to bring fireworks. While it doesn't have a super long run in to set up a pass, keen drivers will look to make deep dives on the brakes into the downhill apex. As such, we will need to keep an eye on the mirrors for any lunges while on the brakes. The first big unknown for drivers is turn 10. Typically the tighter hairpin is used, so this wider version will be interesting to see if passes can regularly be made. This elongated version definitely makes a pass here a lower percentage move, but it wouldn't be surprising if some inventive drivers manage to make it stick. Then as we come up to the final sector, we get the biggest shakeup of the lap. This version of turn 12 has been missed by racing fans ever since the chicane was added to the final sector. This fast right-hander will see the drivers just breathing the throttle to make the corner, a big change up from the 3 90-degree corners on the modern layout. Then with the extra speed in turn 12, turn 13 becomes an entirely new challenge. Now drivers will need to set the nose more precisely, and behind traffic you'll need to mind the dirty air to get a good run back down the long front straight. Let's take a look now at the onboard lap and see a driver's eye view of Barcelona Historic. So starting the lap here at Barcelona Historic, the key thing to get a good lap around here is to start off with a good run out of the final corner, so you don't lose any time down the front straight here. Make sure to time your shifts correctly as well, and give yourself plenty of time to spot your braking point over on the left hand side before turn 1 here. Hard on the brakes and down into second gear, getting as tight to the inside as you can, and hold it tight to help open out turn 2, and once again holding it quite tight to open out turn 3. The first 2 corners you sort of need to sacrifice for turn 3. coming to the exit of turn 3, the left rear will start to struggle a lot here, so just do be careful at the back end trying to step out. Turn 4, braking just before the bridge there, and aggressively attacking the inside once again, keeping the car tight to allow us to get the wheel straight and then get traction coming off the corner. Bring the car hard over to the right hand side for turn 5, and again we want to get nice and tight to the inside here, and get the car straightened nice and quickly so we can get a good clean exit. Turn 6, there's nothing to it, so we need to set up turn 7, braking just before the curb on the right and getting hard over the inside curb to give ourselves room to avoid the sausage curb coming through turn 8. Turn 9, big fast sweeper, attacking the inside curb here, but being careful not to run too far wide here as the track limits do play a role here. Let the car ease over to the right hand side, setting up turn 10, braking between the 100 and the 50, and getting the car nice and tight to the inside here. Not arcing out too far wide as that increases the distance that we're travelling before setting up turn 11. Down into second gear, it's a very tricky long sweeping corner where traction is also limited, so cars may struggle through here. Turn 12, an absolute joy of a corner, use plenty of curb on the inside and on the way out, and then finally a small dab of brake for the 13th and final corner. Make sure not to run out into the gravel, and that's lap of Barcelona Historic. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the second presentation of VRS track walks for the VRS SCO Sprint Series. Hockenheim was a rollercoaster of a race, so be sure to tune in this Saturday to see some of the best on iRacing continue to fight for their share of $25,000.
Well, it's not just Jamie Fluke that we caught up with. Just as we did last week, we caught up with all of the drivers to try and get their thoughts heading into round number 2. Let's go ahead and hear from the drivers themselves.
Whoever's cutting this in is going to have a little bit of a chuckle. I just need to pull up the schedule so I can actually see.
So I haven't really looked past the schedule, past round 1. So I guess Hockenheim, because this is round 1.
Just give me a moment.
Not a strong point for the championship in my opinion. But if I had to give a favourite track, it probably for now would be the Red Bull Ring.
My favorite track probably is Hockenheimring and Nürburgring on the schedule. They are extremely nice tracks. They are of course German, and me as a German, they of course have a plus point for me, and I really like to race on them.
I think it's gonna be Barcelona. Yeah, or Monza, but probably Barcelona with these cars.
I don't know all the tracks on the schedule, but I'm definitely looking forward to Red Bull Ring the most.
I'm really looking forward to the Red Bull Ring. I think a new track for iRacing is always adds like that extra level of challenge.
If it's done on the pace over 1 hour, and if all cars are within a second, 2 seconds, you're good.
Obviously, that's completely unknown as to how the BOP is going to change throughout the season. I think it's obviously going to be very dependent on which cars are strongest at which circuits.
And every car has its strengths and weaknesses, so it's got to be adjusted from track to track, obviously. It's really hard to always get the best balance, but I'm confident that over a whole season, every car will have the same chances to win the championship.
In pre-qualifying, it seemed like the Porsche was the fastest car, and after that, Merc and Lambo. So I would expect the Porsche to get hit the most, especially because they have the fastest teams.
Yeah, that's also a new format to that, and changing BOP for every race, that's something you never really have in the official side of iRacing. So it's going to be even harder there, and it's going to change a lot of results in every single race, because there's always going to be a car which is faster than anyone else, and there's also ever going to be a car which is slower than any other car. It is just not really possible to make a perfect BOP, so there's going to be a lot of discussion prior to every single race, and yeah, every single practice session probably. So it's going to be a hard one for everyone, and everybody just needs to give everything and get the best out of the BOP.
So when it comes to BOP, this is obviously very interesting. I'm in the car, or in the same car as some really fast guys, so people like Josh and Dane can potentially be really annoying, where they may make the car look a little bit faster than it actually is, which might not benefit me. So yeah, I hope this doesn't hurt me too much, but I guess we'll see through the season.
Can I say no to this question?
Yeah, I think I will pass on that one.
I mean, I guess the engine sounds something like this. You really didn't expect it to do that, did you?
I mean, this is perfection when it comes to car sounds, in my opinion. So, I mean, we could try and replicate this. There you go. Here's something.
There it goes. I don't know.
So yeah, the car sound of the GT3R. I think it goes something like this.
Car goes brrrr.
And well, some of the drivers had a bit more fun with that final question than the others. Just a reminder as well that VRS and LEGO are teaming up to give away a LEGO Technic 911 RSR for each of our race weekends, in addition to the season-long giveaway of a VRS Direct Force Pro wheelbase. So head on over to giveaway.sportscaropen to enter yourself. One has already been given away of those LEGO kits, with 5 still to go. Let's take a look at our driver wall before we head in towards qualifying, because as always, we are delighted to have in-car looks with almost every single one of the drivers. We get to see the emotions on their face. We get to see the different things that they're looking at, and here you can take a look at that one. And Lewis, it's always a different experience being able to peer into the cockpit behind the driver's helmet, if you will. Look at the focus on the guys at the bottom of the screen. They're qualifying right now. Mitchell de Jong and Zach Campbell.
Yeah, there's nowhere to hide in that sense when it comes to the emotion. We've spoken about some drivers where they almost don't react to what's going on. They're just so focused on a part of the moment, whereas other drivers are very flamboyant and very energetic with what's going on. And when you've got a camera on you, you've got to behave. It's something to genuinely think about, because you don't want to, be effing and jeffing, as they classify it. You've got a camera on, you've got to be careful with that kind of stuff. So it's another layer. Good for us though.
It's always interesting to see the emotions when someone has a bit of a disappointing swing of things. I remember during the iRacing Indy 500 just earlier this year in May, we got to see, or I got to see, because I was the one directing everything and commentating, Michele Costantini, who was heartbroken to have lost it to his teammate Brandon Treno, now a 3-time winner at the Brickyard. We are almost 6 minutes done with qualifying. You can see the times are already well and truly flying on in as Williams Esports Razor up into the top 10. But this is the great part about this open qualifying session, Lewis. The cars come down onto pit road. They'll top off the fuel just to get another couple of laps out on track. They'll get a fresh set of rubber. They'll head back out there for some faster lap times.
And what it means is there's strategy to qualifying. I've never particularly liked the just go out there and do a couple of laps and then just hit escape and get on with it. I like the idea that you have to treat qualifying like a proper session. You've got 20 minutes, and how do you use it? It means that there is a penalty for every lap that you do. If you're going to treat your session as doing, in a sense, Super Pole run, so only one hot lap on a run, that you've then got one out lap, one time lap, one in lap. If you can find a way to have the tyres be quick for a couple laps, even 3, that means the penalty of an out lap and an in lap is much, much less. In that sense, you're out on track more, you're setting times a lot more. It's an interesting way to calculate your way through the session, and making sure that you are one of the last cars to cross the line at the end of the session, so you're one of the last drivers setting a time. At the moment, the 40.971 from the LEGO Technic Esports car, that one being Tommy Osgaard behind the wheel at present. They're just on another out lap right now, and that's the focus of our attention on screen right now, just behind the BS competition BMW. They are on an out lap, so they're just cruising, not trying to get by, trying to use get in place for slipstream. That is a good time. The fastest in practice was I believe it's a 40.8, so that's pretty pacey to start out the session with a 40.9.
And well, I mean, we talked about changing weather conditions last time from the Hockenheim Ring. It is quite cloudy in this first session, and of course with 2 different sessions for each of the races, it does mean you might have some slightly different qualifying conditions as we go on board with the LEGO Technic car. not necessarily sure they'll be too happy to be this close to the cars in front of them. It is a long run out of this corner, and let's be honest, Lewis, I might have thrown some shade at the chicane last time we were on air, and that's because really, you ask me, 90-degree corners to complete the final portion of this lap really ruin the flow. We are using the historic layout. They will have seen Lucaxio when Jamie Fluke was talking about it, but this is a 1 kilometer run from the final corner down to turn number 1.
Yeah, it's a great run. In these kind of cars, you don't obviously get too much dirty air. It is a factor, just not quite as much, and so you can really turn it in. It's why slipstream is crucial. Right now, I'd suggest the BS competition car, Quernbach's a little bit too close to Mitchell de Jong in that number 91 car that took the first pole position of the season. Tommy Oscar, we're currently on board with. You can see already on that straight, has already closed up, and so now realistically has to make a move on the BS competition. There's going to be any time gain. But what does making a move do? It costs you time.
And well, I do have to ask you, Lewis, I didn't get to catch all of the GT4 action yesterday as we look on board with Tommy Oscar in the Coanda house. Not just in the GT3s, but the GT4s from Hockenheim. Qualifying second was your golden ticket to race victory. I have a feeling that trend was broken yesterday because I did hear there was some commotion in race 1s and 2.
Yeah, there was plenty that happened. I think it was 4th place that the winner started in race 1. In race 2 that we had, and this is the other stat that I brought, is obviously based on that we'd not seen a pole position translated to a victory, and I'm sure that'll be looked at because there was a lot that happened in race 2. Anyone that was catching up with yesterday's action, there was a bit of an issue on the start, and a lot happened, and so whether... Yeah, not even going to go into that. It was a lot to digest, but it was the first time that we'd seen a pole position converted to a race win, which I did argue the point then that I really don't think we will see that happen often, if at all. It's one of those things that's just so very, very rare. In a format that's as open as this, you just don't see it.
The Lego Technic car has abandoned that run down onto pit road as see the Apex Lamborghinis following suit. There's Valkyrie across the line, waiting to see if anyone goes faster. Doesn't look like it, so BS competition don't improve when they were so close to Mitchell de Jong, who doesn't improve from his second qualifying spot. Valkyrie Esports, you mentioned Arnage Competition as a team that debuted last time out and really showed some pace. If not for some contact in race number 2 down into the hairpin, I think Valkyrie Esports would be up in the mix as well, Lewis.
Yeah, Valkyrie really did. They impressed us a lot, didn't they, last round out. One of those sort of underdog teams that just fired onto the scene, and they did such a good job. But like I say, it's kind of one of those things. It was just a bit unfortunate. We saw quite a lot of this from some teams, even the Urano Esports car and whatnot, that were involved in contact. Hockenheim ring, you run down into the hairpin, and there are issues there. It does happen, and that's kind of what we saw there. The thing is, though, is that you can see there is plenty of pace within this car, and so hopefully they can get on board with that as the season progresses. Maybe the BMW is going to match well here. Kova weren't too convinced in that. They thought it was going to be, that the BMW wasn't going to go super duper strong around here.
Well, Tuomas Tatsula, I think, did say in those interview clips that this was one of his favorite tracks on the schedule, but like you said, on social media was maybe downplaying their chances. Pekka Toivonen did slot into the Kova car, and he is replacing Antti Ahola once more here today as the reserve driver. That means that Toivonen will be ineligible to compete in the rest of the races. Urano and the HKM number 90 are up into the top 10 as we see the Kova car down on towards pit road. In fact, they're leaving pit road, so with 8 minutes left to go, they might have not just one run, but 2 runs left in under their belts. As I see BS competition across the line, they've improved, but only to 18th position. Once more, the times are very, very close. The top 10 separated by only 0.4 of a second. The top 20, Lewis, only 0.6 separating them.
Yeah, but then take a look at where the number 93 is. Your championship leaders right down the order, a good way off. They've obviously not set a relevant competitive time, but they are down there in 28th spot at the moment, a whopping 6 and a bit seconds off. But again, let's ignore that because that clearly isn't them on pace. Leading the championship by a single point. Now that is down to pole position, because remember, there is a point on offer for this session, and last round they shared a win and then a second place, exactly the same results as what Kova got, just the other way round. It was just the qualifying pole, which shows how important that single point could be.
I mean, the margins at the end of the day might be single points, and so with not just a point on offer for a fastest lap, but across of the two qualifying sessions, it really does open the doors. As let's see if Warren's able to go quicker. It does look good, a 41 and counting as he comes across the line. It's not going to be pole, but it should put him solidly up into the top 5. He's second, only 1/10 behind his teammate, so it's now technically a VRS Coando 1, 2, and 3. As always, the purple and orange so strong in qualifying. Joshua Rogers will be taking over qualifying duties in race number 2. We saw his charge in race 1, and this qualifying format, you talked about it briefly at the start, Lewis. It really means there is nowhere to hide. Both drivers have to do some qualifying. Both drivers have to start and finish a race.
Yeah, looking good at the moment for Apex that we're currently on board with, up in 4th spot in that Lamborghini. This is what I was calling back to. I'm pretty sure that Tackler was saying about the Kova car that in that interview that whilst going very strongly around here, I think more favouring the circuit more favours the Porsche and the Lamborghini more so than the BMW. Although the balance of performance right now is pretty tight, as we could tell by this session. It's nice and close, it's very, very tight, and when you've got a grid of this strength, they are pushing the cars to their very, very limit. Zach Campbell currently on the screen, so both Apex cars up in the top 10. Good to see the Lamborghinis up there.
It is good to see the Bulls, who did complain about both top speed and low speed corners in terms of BOP last time. Of course, that's basically the entirety of the Hockenheim ring. On board with Campbell, the young Georgian, as we fly our way down into the final corner. Looks like this lap time might be quite good. Across the line, you can see he's very relaxed at this point. Doesn't improve. He'll, I think, have one more opportunity to go around and get a fresh set of boots and another flying lap time. Speaking of Kevin Ellis Jr., by the way, this wonderful facility has hosted so many different sorts of racing. Of course, home to F1 testing and F1 races back since 1992. But of course, recently, I'm only thinking about the last 6 years, Rallycross has visited the Hockenheim ring. Visited this circuit. It's also visited the Hockenheim ring, I should say. But we do have the Rallycross layout here in the iRacing service. It uses the final sector of the track, and Kevin Ellis Jr. is making a run for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship. Catch him in action, I think, hopefully later this year, because he has looked very impressive, not just across of 2021, a standout season for him in the Porsche Taycan Esports Super Cup, but a standout performance as a rookie in the IRX All-Star Invitational presented by Yokohama. Just under 5 minutes left to go. This is the business end of qualifying, and really, Lewis, it's about building yourself up. You've got the banker laps done and dusted. Go flying for the last couple of minutes.
Absolutely. I mean, to reduce a little bit of pressure, normally we speak of Barcelona in other sorts of racing as being a circuit which you just can't pass on. It's one of those circuits where qualifying really, really matters. However, based on, yes, I know it's GT4, so GT3 is a little bit faster, so it's a little bit harder to pass, but GT4 is genuinely, yes, I'm pretty sure we saw a move into every single corner, and that is not me exaggerating. It was pretty much every single corner, even turn 9 going up the hill. We saw moves up there. It was really, really impressive, showing that you don't necessarily need to qualify so well, which doesn't, I wouldn't say it reduces the pressure so much on the shoulders of those drivers qualifying, but maybe just makes it a little bit more comfortable that if they don't extract everything from the car, you've still got an hour-long race to really push it forward, and you can work your way through the field, or well, rather your teammate can work their way through. You want to pass it off to them.
Maniti Racing, they're up into 12th as Mitchell de Jong does not improve. 30-car grid, we saw Maniti Racing unfortunately missing out last time with some previous commitments. We also saw the second of the Biela Racing Lamborghinis unfortunately having to miss out because one of their drivers medically unable to compete. They are back in action. Maniti and their Mercedes are here today, but unfortunately Altus Esports won't be taking to the grid. So 29 cars, and Altus did say that real-world commitments, Cooper Webster and Jordan Caruso, the two regular season drivers, meant they were unable to compete here from sunny Spain. And of course, there's not going to be too much time to head to the beach after this. It will be straight on over to the Circuit Zolder. I'm sure preparation will be beginning in earnest, not just right after this, but I'm sure to some extent already has begun. Urano and Louis Najner building up the speed and going quite slowly through this final corner, but that's really because we are not F1 cars, Lewis. We do not have the downforce to go flat out through this final corner.
What makes it a proper corner. This final sector, when you've got the car nailed, when you've got a car that's dancing around this track, I'm the first to admit I am not a fan of this track. I really, really don't enjoy driving it. But there is something about it when things click, when you get a good flow, it can really, really link together, especially on this layout. You're running through like you say, the faster hairpin, the faster final section. It does make it a lot more enjoyable and a lot more raceable. But you can see here, going out potentially even a little bit too early might be okay here. With 2 minutes left on the clock, there's still, if you're leaving the pit lane now, you still might be able to get round to start a lap. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of traffic, a lot of cars out on their warm-up lap. For anyone who's watched V8 Supercars or watched even British Touring Cars or any sort of qualifying, I mean, look at Formula 1 the previous weekend, you're out there doing your hot lap whilst everyone else is trying to warm up into the session and building up for their final flying lap. They're getting in the way. Even if they're not directly slowing you down, they are a distraction, and driving through it at the moment, trying his best. I don't think looks too happy. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's the reaction and the frustration. I don't necessarily think any major issues in terms of his own driving, but just so much lap traffic, and maybe he'll get the chance to slow himself down right now, cool the tires off, because you do get the chance, once the checkered flag flies, to finish the lap time that you are on. There are a number of cars coming across the line. I see Kevin Ellis Jr. in the Apex Racing team car. He's towing his teammate down that main straightaway, and Najna is going to come straight down onto pit road. That will be qualifying done for him. 60 seconds left on the clock. This is that final run to the flag. Can anyone topple VRS? Coanda, they are 1, 2, and 3.
Well, VRS Coanda have had all of the poles this season so far, split between the two cars. The 91's had a pole position, the 93 has had a pole position. Now looks like it could potentially be the turn of the 92. Here's Mitchell de Jong, who's currently on screen. This is an out lap, so he's left the pit lane, but if you can look at the timer, look at what's left, not going to be able to get this lap even started. So I think this is more just that really, really important practice of pit entry, which they really, really need to nail here. It's not an easy pit entry. You've got to dart across the racetrack at a very high speed section of it and dodge the wall, which you'd say is kind of easy. It's not. It's such a tricky, tight entrance into pit lane here at Barcelona.
I see a BS competition. Dane Warren is also practicing his pit entry. We've seen at Hockenheim, which is a similar kind of entry, but it's more like less dangerous, if you ask me. There's less risk of hitting the wall given the speed at which you enter into pit road. We jump on board with Kevin Ellis for the final couple of corners. It's not an easy start to the season in terms of pit entries, because of course next time we head to Zolder, where there's an actual corner before you get down to pit road speed. You can see Kevin has been towing his teammate Zach Campbell around. Neither of them will improve. The Lego Technic car comes in. We're looking at a VRS 1, 2, 3, Apex in 4th, and Kova very strong in race number 1. They said they may be struggling in their BMW, Lewis, but they're still in the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the R8G car came through the final corner. No improvement there. I get the feeling that the session may well have slowed down. It has gone up a few degrees. I think when we started this session, it was around about 34 degrees. It's now up to about 37. So I think potentially the session has slowed down. Still a few drivers trying to throw a lap time onto the board and maybe move their way up. Here's a car that was involved in the action, shall we say. Definitely got pumped into the rear end of a few cars down to the hairpin at Hockenheim. They'll want to put that behind them, being the inertia car. Just pushing it a little bit too far in the racing action. Doing quite good though, although seeming quite comfortable in the Merc.
I was going to say, is there some damage to the front end of that Mercedes? Because we jumped on board. The hood did not look like it had survived the tribulations here through qualifying. Valkyrie's down onto the pit road. We've still got almost 60 seconds before the checkered flag is truly out there and drivers will be removed from the track. There was the Williams Esports Razor car. What a charge through the field for Daniel Lafuente in race number 2, Lewis.
Yeah, certainly so. This car, though, unfortunately, received 2 disqualifications, if I remember correctly. It received 1 for race 1 and 1 for race 2 in the previous round for breaching the Article 9.4 for escapes in qualifying and towing to pit lane rather than returning to it naturally. They won't make that mistake again, especially after a round where they did very, very well to work their way up. They did very well to come back from it, but yeah, just very, very unfortunate for them and a costly mistake.
Still got a few seconds left to go here, but qualifying is done. All the cars making their way down onto pit road. Let's turn up the most famous song in all of esports and go trackside here from the circuit to Barcelona, Catalonia to take a look at our starting grid for race number 3 in the VRS SCO Sprint Masters Championship. So it is Tommy Osgaard for the LEGO Technic Esports team that takes pole position, and the bonus point that goes with it, a 149.71, and it's a Coanda lockout with the number 93 championship leader on the outside of the front row. Mitchell de Jong, he's inside of Kevin Ellis Jr. Of course, these drivers will swap themselves over for qualifying, so you will see it will be Joshua Rogers starting the 91. It will be Maxime Brien in the number 98. Kova, they're inside of the Biela Racing team car. Great to see Patrick Heinrich back in action here today. That car, of course, missing race number 1. Inertia and the Mercedes, they'll be inside of a second Mercedes, VRS Coanda, and Pash Gergis qualifying 4/10 off the pace, with Valkyrie Esports and Apex Racing team rounding out the top 10. Urano Esports HKM and the Urano Esports HP car. It's an all Urano row number 6 with Maniti Racing and Energy Simsport. Great to see the Brazilian Ferrari up there on the outside of row number 7. Williams Esports Razor, Vendaval Sim Racing, they're on row number 8 with Inex Racing and Biela Racing team 17th and 18th. Ross McFarlane for Pure Sims Esports. He'll be inside of Felix Kornbach's teammate Phil Denez when we come to the start. Hopefully no starting shenanigans this time around for the California native. R8G Urano, row number 11, with Martin Kroenke back in the pack in 23rd position. Yanni Kiru qualifying the Core Sim Racing car with Arnage Competition 25th, Core Sim Racing 26th, R8G Junior, Core Sim Racing, and Energy Simsport rounding out our 29 car grid. It is an exciting field that is getting ready to rumble, and well, it's time to dial up Mystic Lewis and get some predictions from you here. What are you expecting in this first race of the weekend?
Right, so we've got the stat of second place is the position to convert. So in that sense, you'd be more looking at this car. I am not going with that, not one bit. Just because I think the slipstream, the potential that we see around here, I know this is more of a curse, but let's just go with it. I'm going with Kova, starting from 5th spot. Well, they started around that kind of spot back in Hockenheim and they worked their way up the order. I think they're going to do the same kind of thing today. Thomas Tattler behind the wheel. I reckon they're going to come out on top.
Bold, especially given, but maybe it's just the way of managing your own expectations. When you go on social media, say it's not going to be the easiest race, you then look very, very impressive when you turn up with a very rapid race car. I'm going to go slightly different to you. I'm going to say Joshua Rogers taking that number 91 car. Let's see what he can do to charge through the grid. It was some eventful starts, both in Hockenheim, but yesterday in the VRS SCO Sprint Challenge. We'll be hoping for a slightly cleaner start this time around. The pace car is in, field is in control of Mac Backham and the LEGO Technic racing car. 60 kilometers an hour, we work our way down into the starting zone. We are live from the circuit to Barcelona, Catalonia. It is time for race weekend number 2 to get underway. It's a long hold, and you can see already contact between Kova and Rogers. It's continued to hold. We are Green Flag Racing. Biela Racing team makes it 3 wide. The long run down into turn number 1. It's an opportunity for some mistakes to be made in the heavy braking zone down the hill. It's not just 3 wide at the front. It's 3 wide at the back. Maniti down the middle. But Coanda 1, 2, and 3. They get through there safely as we jump on board with the Maniti Mercedes. There's almost contact between Valkyrie and the Inertia Euro C car in front of them, but safely through turn number 1. We fly now down into turn 4 here.
Yeah, rising up the hill, 2 wide naturally, as you'd expect through the pack. Seems like a fairly clean start, but there was a bit of a jump. We've got the Biela car as well, trying to go through the middle, rising up to turn 4, and there's the diving in the braking zone. I mean, pick whoever you want out in this, because they're still side by side all the way down the pack. From the front 7 cars, I think, are all in position. Kova was one of the cars that jumped the start there, so could be trouble for them post-race.
Well, last time we saw Altus Esports with some damage to the rear end of their BMW. Let's see if Joshua Rogers has gotten away with that one. But now in through the middle portion of the lap, we come to the right-hander that takes you onto this back straightaway. I think Jamie Fluke might get mugged here because outside line is not where you want to be. In fact, he'll hold position at least for now. Out front, the VRS teammates, 8/10 clear of the Apex Racing team. Teammate Jamie Fluke, of course, back in the pack. Maxime Brien up front is side by side with Sven Haase. There's some chaos further back. back. I see Energy Simsport is off the track. It was all looking clean for the first half of the lap, but of course, that turn 10 proved to be quite difficult. Pure Sims in their Audi has some issues as we work our way down into the final sector. Urano in the Audi bundled off into the gravel. I saw side-by-side Beeler Racing Team for a moment. Lap number 1 in the books. It is Lego Technic Team that leads from Charlie Collins and Joshua Rogers.
Yeah, I think with Melchers there, who was just bundled off the road, as you say, through the third to last corner. So there's been some clear drama that has happened. It's kind of one of those things on that run down into turn 10, you do tend to see some issues.
Sorry, Lewis. There is a Ferrari upside down on the pit straightaway. That is Inex Racing and Jarl Tien. So we've got a number of replays to try and cycle our way through. Hugo Luis is going to be very busy queuing everything up, but side by side, the Mercedes, that is trying to go down the inside. Behind the wheel, at least for now, it's David Williams. I think for Maxime Brienne, it's not been the easiest of starts. He's been bundled down into 7th position.
But going around the outside here does give the inside. We saw a lot of this yesterday, of running around the outside of T4 and then committing onto the brakes. And they were talking about it's a good overtaking opportunity. But behind that, of course, you've got Jamie Fluke in the other Apex car trying to make a move on the inertia one itself. So it's just a little bit dicey. You've also got another Lamborghini and Merc going side by side in the background of this, being the Urano Esports and 81 VRS Commander Simsport. That 81 car must have absolutely risen up the order. I'm pretty sure they qualified quite well. They qualified down in 23rd, and they're up to 15th. I don't quite know how they've done that in a lap and a bit.
Incredible stuff, I think, just working their way through the carnage, coming down here into turn 10 around the outside. Williams in their Porsche try to make it stick. The Mercedes will have the inside now for the second part, but not enough overlap. Single file they'll go, at least for now. In terms, by the way, Lewis, of the gap out front, all the battling between, I think, the Beeler Racing Lamborghini and the BMW Fakova has enabled the top 3 cars to separate themselves by 1.5 seconds. Still 56 minutes to go in a long race with a pit stop window about to open up in about 20 minutes time, but right now looking very promising for VRS SCO. And guess who goes fastest? Josh Rogers himself.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty quick, that guy. Obviously, you know that Coanda here are going to be working together in a sense. You see Urano there with the Williams car as well, diving out. Oh, that's a big centre. Oh, is that a slowdown for Valkyrie? Is that a slowdown? It must well have been, because they have dropped right down into the pack, slowing down as well the BS competition. So clearly something has happened for that Valkyrie car, because that is a lot of ground lost.
This is incredible stuff, and I must say, I'm having a lot of fun talking about this, but it does mean the battle for the race lead is very much being dominated by the purple and orange. Lafuente's teammate down the inside is Kopanen into 11th spot, defending from the Lamborghini behind. And now this really is heating up and just letting those cars out front run away. Only 5 minutes done, only one retirement. That would be the Inex Racing Ferrari of Jarl Tien. 4 manufacturers in the top 5, as I think there's damage to David Williams. Contact now with the 94 of Andre Melchers. More trouble for the Urano Audi. Now let's see what race control is going to have to think about all of this. Of course, they'll be reviewing it, but I would suspect that we only get the final determinations, Lewis, come the end of the race.
Yeah, there's so much going on now. I wouldn't put any blame on Jeremy Boothby there. He was kind of there and a bit turned in on. I get the vibe. It was a little bit tight through that section. Obviously, need to take another look at it before making any sort of realistic judgment. But it's where it's so tight around here that they're all trying to fight for their own bit of track space. They're all trying to fight their way up the order, even after a disappointing qualifying. That so much has gone on, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Well, let's start with this. So it's Ferguson sending it down the inside, misses his braking zone and takes the Energy Ferrari out with him. Inex Racing, you see a bit of damage there, but I obviously don't think that's what caused them to go flipping end over end. It would have been something subsequent that happened. Oh, swap for the race lead as we jump back to the live pictures. And guess who's out front? The championship leader, Charlie Collins.
We weren't expecting the 93 to be so insanely strong as they were in the previous round. They're continuing on in that form, having taken the lead of the race, but you can see how tight it is. Oh, a little bit of contact between the 2 VRS cars. Oh, that is it. Lego Technic Esports up to the front, sending essentially their teammate down the road. That is a little bit naughty from Mac Backham. I don't think Charlie Collins will be too impressed with that. Josh Rogers doesn't give a damn as slots up into second position and now has sights set on the race lead itself.
not the first time we've seen the Coanda guys touching. You remember last time it was Rogers and Backham that came together in through the very tricky Sachs curve at the end of the Hockenheim ring. Now we look, though, as they come down onto this back straightaway, the gap has come down very slightly. Coanda still 1, 2, and 3. Biela Racing in 4th. Kova rounding out the top 5. Not necessarily sure what happened there. I just think that Backham got a little bit too deep into the corner, and well, I think Collins was just running a slightly different line that he didn't anticipate, but no harm, no foul, I guess you could say, at least for now, and we'll wait and see if something gets returned at some point. Of course, Charlie Collins and Dane Warren aren't part of the VRS Coanda house, so they won't be able to go and express their frustrations in person, but by the same token, they're not able to put things aside. There's less relationships, I guess, that you can build. Here's the flip that we're going to see, and it's a sandwich of Ferraris. And, well, that is hard into the wall. And immediately, Jarl Tien goes over to the disappointment of our Twitch chat. That was not a Jack flip. That was a Jarl flip instead.
Yeah, that was not great. Just a lot of darting, of course, as you're coming out of the final corner. You've got a fair amount of concrete, the green concrete on the left-hand side, and once that disappears, you've obviously got grass, so you want to get off of that. They all kind of came together, and Inex the one that are paying the price, so that's certainly not great for them. They'll be a bit frustrated. Well, if these guys all battle, it'll allow the Biela car to get involved, and also Kova as well, so they've got to be a little bit careful. They'll be hopeful that the VRS Coanda 18, that Mercedes that's being driven by Williams at the moment in 6th spot, will be able to get involved and maybe slow that pack down, but these three are fighting hard. They're not the only ones fighting hard, though, as plenty is going on.
That's the core Mercedes looking to the outside, with the core Ferrari leading the train down the hill in towards turn number 7 to the inside of the Vendaval Audi. Can they make that stick? This is the battle for 20th position, as I see Tim Matska in the Maniti Mercedes has gotten past Jamie Fluke. There's all sorts of chaos and all sorts of action. You can see damage to the front of that core Mercedes. Let's see if we can try and figure out where that took place. I will say, by the way, as well, these guys are fighting much harder than I expected between the teammates, and Dominic Engel, Race Control, has let us know that in the combined 7 races between Masters and Challenge competition so far, in just 2 weeks so far, Lewis, this is almost the 6th different incident with teammates coming together. We saw some drama in race number 1 last time between the German sim racing cars. This time around, no major calamities, though.
Yeah, yesterday we saw 3 different inter-team incidents in race 1 alone. It was the GSR cars that made contact on lap 1 down at the first corner yesterday. We had the 2 core cars that came together courtesy of another incident. I think the 2 Sim RC cars as well battled it out, and so yeah, certainly wasn't great. Vendaval there being passed by the R8G car, Alexander Walters, gaining a position and moving up into what I believe at 21st spot, so not great for them. The gap between the leaders and the Biela car is around about 1.6 seconds realistically. He's been holding around about 1.5, 1.6. Realistically, they need to keep the gap the same, because I get the feeling that Kova and Thomas Tattler, they aren't going to try and make a pass stick on Sven Haase right now, because eyeing up a bigger prize, and that is smart move, that is heads up driving. That's exactly what we expect from an outfit of their strength.
I will say, as this really is chaotic. Oh, something just happened to the Pure Sims Audi. Oh, they just about got away with that. It's the core Ferrari looking to the outside. Incredible to think that this is all the way down the end of the field where there are no points on offer. Of course, 15th on up do score those championship points, as there's a swap around for second. Charlie Collins getting past Joshua Rogers. All they're doing out front now, with the amount of hectic racing that's going on between teammates, is letting that Biela Lamborghini come back into the mix. We'll see with 50 minutes left to go how things will shake out, because of course only 15 minutes away from the pit stop window opening. That's Valkyrie in their BMW off the road.
That's a shame for them. They've done quite well to climb up the order. I'm not sure, was it the Valkyrie one? I don't think it was.
No, I thought for a second it was. It looks like it's Alexander Walters in the R8G Audi instead. So more commotions down into La Caxia down at turn number 10, and in fact, no, it's not even the Audi. That's the junior car. It's the Porsche of the seniors, but of course the juniors have had a much better start to the season. Let's take a look then at this replay as Walters deep under the brakes, and it's more contact from behind. It's the other of the Energy Sim Sport Ferraris, Renan Azderdo behind the wheel for now, and we'll see what Race Control has to say come the end of that. Of course, we were talking about it while we were watching the drivers go around during the practice session, Lewis, but this is a relatively new track to the iRacing service. But of course, just the way that things work, just as the iRacing team gets it out to us and to our wheels so that we can get to experience this wonderful facility. Of course, they just have to go and make some very minor modifications to turn 10.
Yeah, of course, in the real world, we've had that tighter section removed, which means that actually the fast corner is slightly tighter itself. They've changed the profile of it. I think they've added a little bit more banking to it as well, which, works. Fair enough, is what it is. It's just one of those things. I wouldn't say it's so fundamentally different that we desperately need a change. It's nigh on the same. It's just a slight differential, particularly to the entry of the corner. The exit itself is very much the same as we run in here. It's just, I think, it's a little bit more over to the left-hand side, a slightly tighter entry and a bit over. Just a bit more, slight difference. It's not major. We're okay.
Lights flashing from the Valkyrie car. I don't know if he was too pleased as Phil Dinez, one more positions gained. It's 6 up for the Zebras in race number 1, but in terms of movers and shakers, Jeremy Bouteloup in the number 81 Mercedes, he's up 10. Carl Janssen in the core Ferrari is also up 10, so drivers making up double digits on the start. Still very early on, of course, not just this one race, but a second race still to go, so plenty of points on offer and plenty of time for these drivers to work themselves back into the mix of the championship. Taking a look through turn number 1 as some gravel gets kicked up. Of course, you've got the anti-cut curves to discourage cars from trying to rejoin back onto the track. When they run a little bit deep, we'll hopefully see none of the cars having those sorts of an issue. The Williams car, by the way, into the top 10, so great to see after what was not a difficult performance by them. They struggled a bit in race number 1, charged through the field in race number 2. Those disqualifications have really hurt them in the championship. In such a short season, Lewis, you really cannot afford to have things go like that.
No, we were, like I said earlier, that you make that mistake once. You do not make that mistake again. That is something that does not come up once more. It's a silly thing. It happens at the start of the season. Fair enough. It's an oddity in the rules that maybe you wouldn't necessarily be used to elsewhere, but that's why it's so important when you sign up to a new series, especially when there's prize money up for grabs. You must read the rule. But Collins to the race lead. Collins has taken over the race lead, getting by Mac Backham. So this trio of Porsches from VRS SCO are at the front of the field. They are battling out, and that is the second move that Collins has made down into turn 10.
Take a look at the replay and how this one happened. Not really fought by the Lego car, and you have to think that Philip Stam in the Coanda team house is telling these guys to be careful, because they are now actually starting to extend the gap to the cars behind, because there is squabbling going on between the fourth and fifth positions. There you can see it is the Biela car still in front of Kova, but 2.2 behind the race leaders. The top 3, they are separated by less than half a second heading down into turn number 1.
But how many times did we saw this kind of thing happen back at Hockenheim, where we saw them space out and we saw them all kind of come back together again as the race unfolded. So necessarily, I wouldn't exactly rule anyone in this trio out of it. Although, knowing Coanda and their pace, it's going to be pretty hard to get among them. And once again, in 10 minutes' time, the pit window will open. We're expecting them in more so in around about 15 minutes' time, around about the halfway point of the race. Although some might come in earlier, some might come in a bit later. When that pit window opens, they'll come into the pit lane. They are required to change driver. We've seen them; they'll switch tyres as well. However, they'll treat their pit stop to get them involved in the race. We saw Coanda last round experimenting a little bit on tyres and only taking 2 to try and gain a bit more track position. I wonder how that's going to play out around a circuit, which is pretty high on tyre wear. Whether they're going to take that gamble or just take 4.
Jeremy Bouteloup down a couple of positions in just a few moments. Dinez has gotten past, Lemre has gotten past. The BMW doesn't look awful when it comes to balance of performance. And really, it's wonderful to have a per-race balance of performance. The only thing that maybe I would say is it'd be great to see those Ferraris just a little bit more competitive, struggling in qualifying. But maybe they can just build things up for the second half of the season, almost halfway through already, and we're only 2 weekends into this championship. In through the penultimate corner, let's see if Bouteloup can use the grunt of that Mercedes naturally aspirated engine to try and get past the BMW.
Yeah, it's definitely needs to do so. They've done great to work their way up from the qualifying position. By the way, Kova's going for a move to grab fourth from Biela. There it is. Just caught that on the other screen. So Thomas Tattler gets up into fourth spot, and that was becoming important because the gap was getting bigger. Sven Haase just doesn't have the pace to close down to the VRS Commander bunch, and so now Tattler is thinking, I've got to get on with this. I need to start making my own progress and making my own destiny. And we know this Kova car's fast, and we know, most importantly, better than realistically anyone else, they are good at looking after their tyres. They are good at playing the long game in these kind of races. So, you know, yes, it's only an hour race. You do need to play your cards right over it. And if the VRS Commander bunch are going to battle, fair enough. That's more time to close up. If they're not, you know they're in control. So it's about just making the most of the current opportunity.
And in terms of track conditions, it's 36 degrees Celsius, so not the warmest in terms of what it's doing to the tires, but definitely going to be some sort of difference between race number one. If maybe we get slightly less clouds for that second race session, we'll obviously be racing slightly later in the day, I would have to assume, because it's 3:30 p.m. in the virtual Barcelona, at least right now, and so it's still plenty of on-track action to come. The track temperatures might even continue to drop. Talking of dropping, I think your race leader is starting to drop his teammates. The gap is up to 0.7 of a second, and for the first time, Joshua Rogers in third is out of the 1 second barrier to the race leader.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I will say with the when it comes to the tyres, we'll just carrying on that sort of heat topic. I think the second race will be cooler because it's in the same day, so it is, you know, the weather is pulled from essentially the day. This is kind of what we're expecting. This is just how it is with the fantastic stuff that we have here when it comes to how the clouds affect the racetrack and race surface, cool it down, heat it up, etc., etc. The second race is taking part later in the day. It's more towards evening, same as it was yesterday for anyone who joined for the sprint challenge. So the next race should theoretically be cooler. However, this race at this time yesterday, the track was around about 45 degrees. So we're running almost 10 degrees cooler than that. And the next race we were in the evening one, we were running more towards 20s, 25. So anyone with tyre issues in this because of the heat surely will be dissipated in the second race in the potentially cooler conditions. Although in this sense, it might actually be a little bit hotter.
And well, we did see last time that with a 30-second driver change, most of the teams did take 4 tires. BS Competition showed in that second race you could try the zero tire strategy. It's not always necessarily going to work in your favor. For Dinez, who is in that car right now, it was a very impressive drive after Kornbacher worked his way up into podium contention to hold off the charge of the Kova car for a decent while longer than I think anyone expected, and holding on then to third with the Altus car trying to chase them down. Of course, there is an incident limit, which does give you time penalties. There's a bit of cone murder going on there in the Mercedes. We'll have to try and get some words there. Cone lives do matter as well, I do think, because, well, of course, we have that famous Le Mans cone, which we had featured on RaceSpotTV at one point in time. For 24 hours, we had a camera just pointed there watching as cars continue to knock those cones over, ignoring all the hard works that the virtual stewards continue to do to put that cone back out onto track. The gap, though, between third and fourth is now up to 2.5 seconds. Down into turn one. Can Dinez get the drag in that BMW M4? He looks to the inside, and I don't think the Mercedes fought that one too hard.
That was a proper send from Phil Dinez, so was not waiting around and didn't need an invitation. So that's 20th up now to 12th spot. So after a not so great qualifying, they are bouncing back bit by bit, and they just need to do that a little bit more. They need to find that little bit more pace out of the tank at the moment. They're in a good spot. They seem to have decent pace, and the thing is the pack ahead of them is still relatively close. Whilst they are spreading out bit by bit, they're all kind of there. You can see them. You've got that visual cue. You know what you're chasing down. You can see that car getting bigger and bigger. So for BS Competition at the moment, it's not the end of the world right now. They're climbing up. They're making progress, and the car is clearly quite positive, and moves are being made, so they're getting more confident.
5 minutes to go until the pit stop window opens. There will be 10 minutes for drivers to get themselves down onto pit road, swap it on over to that second driver, and release them onto track to go as fast as they can to the checkered flag. And of course, The driver that starts race number 1 will do the qualifying for race number 2 and also complete that race and bring it to the checkered flag. So as we look at Sven Haase, once he gets out of this car, it will be a 30-minute break for him, give or take. Heads back into then that car for qualifying before he has to watch his teammate take it to the green flag and try and do whatever he can to get some more points on offer. Of course, Haase and Heinrich missing out in race number 1 due to some health issues. It's great to see them back in the grid. And while Biela is, traditionally known as being associated with the 4 Rings and Audi, it is been a swap over to them in this new era of GT3 racing on the iRacing service. This Lamborghini looks splendid in the Biela Racing colors. It's going quite rapidly as well.
I do like myself a bit of Lamborghini. They look fantastic. They look very racy. They dart around in how many times we talk about this when it comes to Porsches and BMWs and Mercs and Lambos, and how obviously different drivers approach cars in different ways, because if you're drivers that don't like an oversteery car, you're not necessarily going to want to be in a Porsche or even a Lamborghini, where they're these cars that you really need to wrestle around the track. You want a more balanced car like a BMW or a Merc, but then some people might classify those as understeery or boaty, and so finding that right balance for you, but not only you and your teammate. And that's the important thing here, is that you're in the same sense as endurance racing. You need to find a car that works for everyone in the squad. In this case it's only 2, so you don't need to worry about 4 or 5, but you still need to make it work for the squad as a whole, and that can be troublesome, especially when you account for setups and stuff. Making the difference, it's not an easy thing to make work inside the team.
And I'd argue that, especially coming to a track like this, Hockenheim does have a long straightaway down into the hairpin, but so many slow speed corners, whereas this has a few more higher speed corners. So really balancing the amount of downforce that you have versus the ability to go fast in a straight line and make moves is going to be very crucial. And so drivers really have been having to find that balance. And well, in terms of finding the balance, I must say I'm very impressed right now at the job that Charlie Collins is doing, almost 1 second clear of his teammate. And the interesting thing here is we thought Kova, after getting past Biela, might be able to close the gap, but if anything now, Lewis, the gap has gotten bigger, almost 3 full seconds.
Yeah, and they are pulling it out, the Coanda bunch ahead. Again, this is kind of we have hope for Kova. We have hope that they can close it down and try and get involved. But you've got to remember, for this, Kova are just a single car, and they are trying to take on one of the biggest outfits, arguably, and certainly in my opinion, realistically the biggest outfit in sim racing. So you're kind of backs against the wall in itself in that scenario. And whilst they have the pace, we're seeing Biela and Core go side by side at a T5. Sindre Setsas currently the focus in the core sim racing Merc that was working its way up the order a little bit earlier. There's a bit of damage on the front right. We're seeing that out of a couple of these Mercedes, where they've just potentially even bumped a couple of curbs, which is not great. Coanda is going to be hard to beat here, especially in their current position.
Ooh, contact between the Audis. That's the RAG Junior car, and Urano Esports and Andre Melcher's long way around for... Is that Quentin Violetta? Yes, it is. A young French lad trying to send it now to the inside of turn number 12. Gives him the optimal line, but is he going to make more contact? Yes, he is. The rear end almost steps out on him. Opens the door for Luca Kita to maybe look to the inside through the penultimate corner. Oh, these guys are racing, and of course, no points on offer for what these guys are doing. They are falling off the tail of those points-paying positions. Now almost 4 seconds adrift.
Melcher's wide. That can allow Kita back into it, just running a little bit too far around that final corner, which is pretty easy to do. Yeah, the corner, especially at the speed they're approaching it in, the front end just doesn't really bite so much. And now you've got some dirty tyres, which you've got to get stopped for turn 1. The braking capacity of the car's just not quite there. The turn-in just isn't quite there. Saw them missing the apex there at turn 1 as well for Melchers. So Kita is right involved, losing the rear end a little bit. Kita is right there, and we can see a move around the outside here.
Outside becomes the inside, but you do have to be brave, because you can get forced slightly wide and offline. A little bit more of a wiggle for the bull. There's almost more contact as well. These guys are getting physical. Elbows are out. Staunch defense from Melchers, but nothing doing. Kita says, I'm going down the inside. Barges him off the racing line, and Sindre Setsos is there to pick up the pieces. We are into the pit stop window, and I do wonder how the teams will approach this. Big snap of oversteer for Setsos, and now let's see if the Audi can fight on back through the outside.
Yeah, got to back out of this one, I think, or you don't tend to see too much side-by-side over at turn 9. Around the outside, though, that was really, really nice from Melchers. Will not be happy with Keita at all. Pit window is now open. Set source, as you say, now trying to go around the outside. If you can make it stick all the way around the outside here, you've got the inside all the way around to the line. Not going to work. The move is completed. Melchers will absolutely not be happy. Or he's in the pit lane.
There's lots of cars on the pit lane, including Joshua Rogers, who will hand that car over to Mitchell de Jong. Kova comes down. David Williams in the Mercedes for VRS Commander is also down. It is a hectic pit road. You can see there's going to be a lot of movement on the left-hand side of the screen. As into the box they go, we ride on board with Valkyrie and Nolan Lemray. He'll be handing it over to Kenny Roostens, who of course qualified that car. Let's see how long these guys spend in pit road.
I was going to wonder about the drop-off of the tyres and potentially that they're trying to undercut in that sort of capacity and try and gather a bit more track position. But I'm looking at the lap times, particularly towards the end of the stint there. They're only really running 2 or 3 tenths slower than they did at the start of the race, so more so just to get this out of the way early. I will say for the 91 car, we were having questions a little bit of Mitchell de Jong in the previous race, and maybe wasn't quite matching to Hockenheim, wasn't quite as fast as we would have expected normally. Seems to be a lot better here, at least based on qualifying. Seems to be plenty comfortable around this track.
Little bit of a break for de Jong, who's of course competing in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series as Corentin Gunes in the core sim racing Mercedes, I would think, or is that the Ferrari? That's the Ferrari. It's a bit hard to tell from this vantage point. He's down on pit road. You can see only 13 cars did not come down at the first time of asking, so it's interesting to see that. The Apex Racing Team Lamborghinis are stacked up in 4th and 5th, at least for the time being. Let's see if anyone else is down onto pit road this time around. Still 7.5 minutes to go. Doesn't look like the Lamborghinis are coming down, and they're not followed in. Excuse me, they're followed through the lap by the Maniti Mercedes behind them. Great to see Maniti in competition. Of course, a unique pre-qualifying format, Lewis, meant that while usually I'd associate Maniti with either the Audi or the BMW, they've gone for the Mercedes. Only 5 representatives of each manufacturer.
Yeah, that's how it is. You may end up going through the qualifying, lumping it with a car that you're not particularly used to, because let's say, for example, you're more used to the Porsche. You want to drive the Porsche. You want to be one of those, VRS Commander here, are they? Yeah, cool. And you know how strong they are. So trying to take on a different car, the Mercedes is we've said it's one that's plenty fast enough, especially these days after the rework that's been done on it. But clearly not as many teams taking it, and that's no disrespect. I'm not trying to say that Maniti tried taking the easy option there, because they most certainly didn't. Qualifying in any car is going to be ridiculously hard, but they jumped over to the Mercedes. They gave that one a go. They've qualified in through it, and I'm going to give them an extra bit of credit, particularly to Tim Matska, who had in my opinion, probably the best effort at actually making a car noise. Even had gear changes in there as well in our pre-race interview.
There were some efforts that were better than others, let's be completely honest there. I did enjoy Max Backham's reenactment of what the Porsche looks like when it's driving as well, and I guess a perfect time to remind you that VRS and LEGO are giving away a LEGO Technic Porsche 911 RSR for every race weekend, with every entry qualifying you for the season-long giveaway of a VRS Direct Force Pro wheelbase. Visit giveaway.sportscaropen to learn more. I think one of the Apex Lamborghinis is down. That's the 98 car. Maxime Briant will hand it on over to Kevin Ellis Jr. Interesting that teammates didn't come in together, though, I would say.
Yeah, you would have more suspected them to work together, but they're doing their own little thing, which is kind of smart. Drive your own race, focus on what you're doing, and just try and bring it home yourself. And into the pit lane. Going to switch it out driver-wise, going to get a bit more comfortable, get a bit, potentially even a bit of track position. If you are in a tight battle like this, sometimes bailing from it and just doing your own thing, you don't tend to see it from the leader of the pack, but like I say, just reducing the pressure and allowing yourself to do lap times by yourself, and also doing it at the halfway point of the race, so it's an even share, 30 minutes apiece basically.
And well, let's be honest, sometimes you don't want to be splitting it that way, because sometimes you'll have one driver who's faster than the other, and it's about winning a lot of prize money here. The road to $25,000, almost 2 rounds in the books. Still got plenty of action to go. 90 minutes of racing here today, and in a week's time we'll head to Belgium, the other track in Belgium, the Circuit Zolder. Curbs always important at a track like there, and finding the right balance. You can see some of these cars have been able to ride the anti-cut curbs in through turn 2 as well as through the final section, the turn 13 and 14 complex. There's a little bit of an anti-cut curb that the Ferrari doesn't necessarily like. We saw some Tony Hawk style grinding posted by some of the teams in the Discord channel, and well, don't necessarily want to see stuff like that. 4 minutes left to go. I wonder if Charlie Collins will be down this time around. No, he's not. He's still out there. 1:42.039 last time around. That is a couple of tenths quicker than Mitchell de Jong has been able to do, as I think Mac Backham is down onto pit road.
That 93 is just looking so fast right now. Again, based on, to give it more so a bit of an edge based on the fastest lap that they've set in the race, and there really is not much difference. You're talking a couple of tenths realistically. Their fastest time of the race being a 41.9. They've set a 41.9. There was that 43 where they got sent off by teammates as well. But from the last 5 laps, 42.1, 42.0, 42.0, 42.1, 42.0. Perfect consistency. That's exactly what you want. You're in the zone, you're driving away. As long as the team is good to be like, hey, by the way, don't forget to pit and hand over the car, things are looking pretty good for that 91. That, by the way, started from 2nd place.
Oh, we're going to see the trend continue. I would just like to say, as we actually wait and see if Osgaard is going to get out in front of de Jong. Yes, he does. It was marginal, but indicates that the gap to Collins will hold. When Collins comes down onto pit road and Warren gets behind the wheel, there is the Ferrari for Core Sim Racing down onto the pit road. He's rolling himself off into the track right now. Behind the wheel is Kieran Harrison, of course, newcomer to the Core Sim Racing car team, as Energy Simsport side by side on pit exit. Vanderval in their Audi will try and defend, but I don't think that Ferrari has the tires in the optimal window to try and hold on. Their teammate behind will try and pounce as well. This is hectic, and it's picking back up once more, Lewis. It had settled at least for a few moments. Of course, these drivers are so closely matched, it's not going to be that settled for very long.
Yeah, when it's this tight, you don't see them have too many laps away from racing someone else, and so that is exactly what is going to continue here. We're going to see them battle it out almost all of the time into the pit lane. Charlie Collins is down, is going to switch out. Dane Warren to take over that car. So, you know, slightly later in the window. Realistically, they need to pit at the end of this lap, so anyone who's not been in pit lane will be coming in this time by, just because there's not enough time left in the window to complete another lap time. But good for a great stint for Charlie Collins. Now Dane Warren has to step up to the plate, as they did last round out.
Well, it was great for Collins until he came down onto pit road. Not sure if he saw that he slid very slightly through his box. Warren releases himself from the box, from the limiter. Where are his teammates going to come out in comparison? How much time has it cost the number 93 car? I think the answer to that is nothing at all. Still comfortably in the race lead. Taking a look at the timing screen, we'll wait for the times to update, but I think the gap is almost 2 full seconds out on track.
Yeah, my timer says it is 1.8 when they left pit lane. Of course, you've got to get the, you know, if change tires, drivers, whatever, got to get up to temperature in any sense, but even if it's just the driving, just to get yourself back into the rhythm. But either way, nearly 2 seconds. That is absolutely superb. Fantastic at the moment, but of course now Tommy Osgaard and Mitchell de Jong will be chasing them down, trying to stop that, but we are very much looking like it's going to be a VRS Coanda 1, 2, 3. But Pekka Toivonen now behind the wheel of the Kova car, 2.4 seconds back. Is that gap going to come down? Slightly less than before the pit stop. I'm pretty sure it was about 3-4 seconds before pit stop, wasn't it?
I think you're right. So Toivonen, as always, very quick. Let's see what the reserve driver can do. His final appearance of the season this weekend. Jamie Fluke into the pit road, slides himself into the box, and Zach Campbell will take over there. Maniti Racing also down. 20 seconds left in the pit window, as there you can see the Lego Technic car now having to look in the rear view mirrors. It's not Rogers now, it is Mitchell de Jong who is chasing down the 92. And in a few moments, it will revert to being a VRS Coanda 1, 2, and 3. It wasn't the easiest of weekends for them last time as an organization. Yes, the 93 car looked very, very strong, but it was very much the 93 car that was on display versus the rest of their field. You also see the 18 of Pash Gergis now inside the top 5 as Ruben Bonga gets behind the wheel. He'll be on those war drums as he'll come out behind the Biela Racing Team Lamborghini. I think something's happened for that Biela Racing Team Lamborghini through this cycle, because at one point sitting up in 4th, he's now down in 8th position.
Yeah, it's not gone well for Heinrich behind the wheel. It's just, I don't quite know what happened, but either way, a slow pit lane sequence, whether it was changing tyres where others haven't or anything like that, but either way, going to instantly dive it down the inside of Zach Campbell, struggling with the car just at present. Of course, fresh out of the pit lane is Campbell. He's going to be on the inside, though, coming down into turn 5, and Patrick Heinrich has to send it all the way around the outside. It's the outside for the next corner as well. Looks like Zach Campbell's going to gather this one up.
What a debut it was for Zach Campbell in World Championship competitions, competing, of course, with Team RLL in the Porsche Tagore Esports Super Cup alongside Kevin Ellis Jr. Ellis Jr. had a stonking run to the top 5 in the championship. Zach Campbell delighted with a top 10. Could have had a bit more if not for some bad fortune. Now in the GT3s for the first time. Here, though, is Kevin Ellis. Down the inside he goes on Pash Gerges. The Lamborghini's now running in 5th. Let's see what he can do to chase down Pekka Toivonen. The gap is almost 3 full seconds, and like you had said, Kova are reeling in the cars in front. They very well could be in the mix for a podium position.
Yeah, we definitely need to keep our eye on the lap times that Kova are going to be setting here, and whether that holds firm all the way through the stint. It's a 2.4 second gap to De Jong, but they're not, I'm not going to say that they're not worried about the 91 or the 92, but their main focus will, of course, be on the 93. After round 1, it was a race winner piece between them. They were runner-up in the alternating races as well, so they were the two cars that were the real focus of the Hockenheim Ring, and right now they need to be doing very much the same.
Interesting to note the driving setup that Pash Gerges has. You know, you'll see the Coanda team house that's, you know, fully equipped with triple screens, all matching rigs in terms of hardware. Pash Gerges had, there you can see it once more, a single screen in front of him. No triples on offer for the 18 car. He's got something off to his left-hand side. That looks like his Discord and, of course, the chat that they've got in there. But not the full-blown, you know, triple monitor setup, the full-blown shebang. Instead, a much more normal type of rig, I would say.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a bit more. You wouldn't say budget, because it's definitely not. I mean, that's what I do. You just attach your wheel to your desk and then hope for the best. You know, it's comfortable, but the point is, when you're on a single screen, you can't see what's to the left or right of you, and so in that sense, your periphery, when you're racing with drivers, with other teams, you need to, in a sense, guess where they are. You need to sort of believe and hope that when you cut back in line that the car's not there. You need to be a bit more in control, a bit more spatially aware of your car rather than using your vision. You need to trust where they're all going to go. It's pretty tricky, but this is more the normality of what we're used to racing with, and it does prove the point now, whilst with a great wheel and whatnot. If you're jumping into sim racing maybe for the first time, you're seeing all of these top drivers with triple screens, the best wheel, everyone's got a direct drive this and load cell that, and the greatest computer known to mankind. You can still compete with them even on a single screen. I mean, you don't even have to have the greatest wheel. You can still battle it out regardless. It's all about just using your equipment to its advantage. You know, it's about you as a driver, not just the equipment you have.
Just a reminder as well that our producer Hugo Luis won an iRacing World Championship against the likes of Gregor Hutu and Martin Kronke at the height of the open wheel days with a G25 at a single 19-inch screen. I cannot even imagine what that must have been like. I just have to wonder all the money and the thousands of dollars I've spent on my sim rig, why it didn't make me a faster driver. Now I know clearly I never had that sort of talent. Someone who definitely has a lot of talent, Dane Warren, is putting on a show. Last time around, it was a 41.837. It doesn't count as the fastest lap of the race, but that's only because somewhere he just violated track limits, got the 1x incident point, and therefore does not count as a fastest lap, but really is showing us why this number 93 car, after last round at Hockenheim, why we thought the 93 would be the championship favorite. 2.5 seconds clear of his teammates behind.
absolutely superb. That'll be where the 1x came from, running a little bit wide through the final corner. A 9.53 that time by, so still plenty fast enough. Kova running ever so slightly faster than the two ahead. It was 2/10 quicker than Tommy Osgaard and about a 10th faster than Mitchell de Jong, that presently holds the fastest lap of the race, that car being a 41.896. So all of these setting incredibly close lap times. You'd have to say in 20 minutes, it's a fairly sizable gap for Pekka Toivonen to close down to Mitchell de Jong. 2 seconds. With the time that it's being closed down bit by bit, I would say it's likely that it'll come within attack range if they all continue on these lap times. I think the deciding factor in it is more so if Tommy Osgaard doesn't pick up the pace a little bit. Is the pole-sitting car, though, and it was Tommy Osgaard that did the work, so he's got pace around here.
That's right. He did qualify that car, and of course will now sit on the sidelines during the next portion of qualifying. Watch as Hypermac Backham gets behind the wheel. Osgaard will start race number 2. There's the core Mercedes. Wonder if there's something that's happened to them. No, it's just some mid-pack action. Of course, this is now for 19th position. The newcomer Kieran Harrison behind the wheel, chasing down the Audi in front for the R8G Junior. That is Vlad Kimichev behind the wheel now. And of course, Roman Grosjean enjoying his first holiday since, I think, starting his NTT IndyCar Series campaign. He's going on a bit of a tour of the US with his family, posting some wonderful food, and I'm sure trying not to eat too much in the land of plenty. With 18 minutes left to go, though, these guys need to get a move on because they are several seconds, almost 5 seconds behind the core sim racing number 32 car that sits in the final points-paying position. There we go. Dane Warren showing just how fast he is, a 41.854.
Waiting for that. I was keeping my eye on the timesheet, seeing, oh, come on, Dane, you can do it. And like I say, those two, Dane Moore and Charlie Collins, right now, I don't know if it's just down to the Porsche or what, but they have matched that car to absolute perfection, and they are driving so very well as a cohesive team, doing really good stuff. At the moment, we're focused on a battle just a little bit further down. It's the 18 VRS SCO with Apex Racing Team, their second car, the 99, directly behind, and Beeler Racing in tow. Zach Campbell behind the wheel of the Apex Racing car, obviously taken over at the halfway point a little bit earlier than others, getting involved in the racing from the off, and now trying to open the door to get by the 18. Pash Gergis under a lot of pressure here.
He's going to cover it off. This is down in towards turn 7, but Campbell throws it to the inside. It's going to get squeezed and is going to lose momentum over the inside curb. Almost wibble-wobbles his way around. The Lamborghini behind was quite patient. That's the Beeler Racing car of Patrick Heinrich. No position swapped for now. But like you said, pressure being applied to Pash Gergis, and well, Zach Campbell's going to have to reset. No move coming from the Beeler car behind, but it is looking like that Mercedes is not as strong as the Porsches of his teammates out front. And of course, that's the fascinating thing about this championship. A Coanda having 5 different entries. 3 of them are in the Porsche, 2 of them are in the Mercedes. So it'll be interesting to see over the course of the season if the Mercedes, which is, we talked about it last time, Lewis, not always been known as the most fun car to drive. It's a lot more fun now, and surely a lot more competitive than it's been in recent past.
Look at that, instantly trying to break the slipstream as well with Pash Gergis, and the heart of this lot of fighting. Well, the drums are being hit from behind. Ruben Bonga in the Maniti Racing car is almost knocking at the door of the scene ahead, and this is, these are points-paying positions. These are all points in the championship chase, and there's plenty of prize money up for it. It's not just for the winner of the championship. So you want to get yourself involved. You want to move your way up there. Beeler Racing all the way around the outside, following even the white line past it. Ascend down here, not really the greatest call, because you can make that stick around the outside, as they found earlier in the race when Zach Campbell went around the outside of Heinrich there as well. So they're still trying to do it. Just no way through at the moment for Heinrich.
Incredible stuff, and of course just a preview of what I think we'll see at the start of the next race, because of course these drivers will be starting the action. I will say, I'm reviewing my notes, and of course I did forget that the last time GT3s were the main focus of sports car open competition was back in 2019 in the summer. They ran the SCO GT Series. Beeler Racing Team, yes, they were in an Audi. They were the series champion in a couple of races. I can tell you this because I competed myself in the GTM category along with a couple of other my teammates in the Mercedes. they were incredibly rapid. So it just goes to show you that when we have this level of competition, even someone like the Biela Racing team, who are so experienced in this car and in this class of category, will struggle when you have so many strong cars doing some very impressive qualifying performance. Talking about Maniti in the background of the shot, well, GT3s did return to the Sports Car Open competition this past winter in the Endurance. In the GTC category, it was a one-mate class with the Audi. Guess who won that? Maniti Racing in the 78.
Yeah, seeming to be, pretty comfortable in this, but right now they're just trying to work their way a part of the battle ahead. They've closed it up. That gap has disappeared. Speaking of other teams and stuff which have been working their way up the order, by the way, Valkyrie did gain the position in Urano Esports HKM, so they are now up to 11th spot as they'll try and close down on BS Competition, who started from 20th spot. They're up inside the top 10. So they're doing great at BS Competition. Of course, they didn't do well in the first race because they got disqualified from it. But then the second race got that podium, which was a really, really superb effort, using a bit of strategy and time management to counter their positions. They were working their way up the order, and now to be inside the top 10, almost having to try and take similar gambles. Valkyrie will fancy themselves a top 10 right now, and they are looking very, very good for it.
Trying to chase down Felix Quirnbach in the Zebra number 89. That's the edge of the top 10. Only 14 seconds behind your race leader, so it's not like these guys are too far off the pace. I would in fact say that maybe just the amount of hard scrapping we saw in the first 10 or so minutes has really broken up the pack and changed things around. And of course, when we get to that race number 2, it's a long hold that we saw from the race leader coming to the start of the race. We might see an equally long hold from whoever's on pole position. Look behind, you see Urano HKM and Inertia Euro RC. They're also closing in on this gap. Move is in shake as well. Core Sim Racing, they are one of the biggest. 11 positions gained at one point. The VRS Coanda 81 car was the biggest mover. They're only 9 on the day so far, but if BS Competition can hold on to this position, it will be from 20th to 10th. That will be a remarkable run as the Mercedes pulls down to the inside, deep under the brake. Urano's going to fight this one around the outside. Nothing doing for the Mercedes for now, but incredible send. I'll have to try it all over again.
Yeah, kind of so. That was a proper one down at turn 1. Was very much fancying the move, but the door was open, just not quite enough. You get the feeling that that's going to happen once again, as BS Competition do have Valkyrie directly behind them. The positions gained, I'm not going to say that I'm necessarily disappointed, but the VRS Coanda Simsport, they're up, like I say, 9 spots in the 81. They did most of that in the first lap and a half of the race, and after that point they've just not been able to take advantage of the pace, which kind of makes you wonder. They qualified out of position, they then moved up into position in the early stage of the race, and then have basically just sat where they are. Let's take a look at what happened between Williams Esports and Arnage Competition. Arnage were one of the teams that were very much a part of our focus last round. This time, really not going well for them. Down in 24th spot. They qualified in 25th, so just +1 for the day so far.
That, of course, is the section of track used by the Rallycross configuration. Wrong type of car to be taking out there into the gravel. Let's see if maybe it will be a better race number 2 for the Williams team. Of course, that's the story of what we saw from Hockenheim. Maybe we'll see that here from sunny Spain as well. In through the final corner, though, the Trulli train is building up behind Pash Gergis in the number 18, ducking and diving across the start-finish line. Can the Lamborghini of Zach Campbell throw a move down the inside? He's going to look to the outside, I would have thought, for at least a moment, but Pash Gergis comes back across the track. He's perfectly entitled to do that. The standing order continues as it is, and I will say Maniti Racing did a great job to close in, but they've been unable to really get to the back end of the Biela Racing team Lamborghini. And if anything, that Lamborghini stuck behind Zach Campbell is looking like the car that's most likely to try something. Here we go down into turn 4, once more covered off by the young Georgian.
Yeah, Patrick Heinrich doing a good effort, but there's just no mistakes being made from Zach Campbell at present, so there's no door open, even whilst trying to fight the Coanda car ahead. Valkyrie, there we go, there is that position gain. They are past BS Competition, that one down into turn 5, so potentially a lunge, maybe even making it stick around the outside of the previous corner. Either way, up inside of the top 10, 6 points for that position, and that'll be very well deserved indeed. I think a little bit too far down the road, 2 seconds, the Maniti race, but if you can close that one down, then you're a part of a battle for a much higher position. It was just just a total send and not fought by the BS competition. That's, I guess, fairly smart in that sense. Just going to give a quick note. Track temperature is up. We are now at 37 degrees Celsius. And the reason why I bring that up is we're up quite a few degrees from the start of the race. And that means that it's slipping away from some team drivers, coming into the hands of others. Cova are closing in on second place again. It's just not coming down enough. They're 1.5 seconds off of the 91 right now. I don't know about you. I see something happening. I see Cova maybe being there, but it's just not quite fast enough right now.
It's one thing to catch, it's another to pass. I think it's a little bit too late. Only 5 laps left, I would say, with 9 minutes left on the clock. If anything, I would suspect there may be a swap around for second and third between the Lego Technic car and Mitchell de Jong chasing them down. Only a couple of tenths separating them, but still the battle rages on as here comes Patrick Heinrich once more. No move forthcoming, but I don't know if you noticed, Lewis, these guys that have been fighting so hard, that Valkyrie BS competition, they are not too far behind. Taking a look at the lap times, they very well could come into the mix.
Yeah, I was wondering that about Valkyrie. Obviously, they're having just got past BS competition. Great for them. They're looking plenty fast enough at the moment. But like I say, whilst this little battle, the thing is, at the moment, out of the final corner, it's the Merc that's heading this group of Pash Gergis that just has enough power, enough grunt to keep the Lambos at bay on that run into turn 1, especially with breaking the slipstream straight away. We can see as we're riding on board and looking backwards from Zach Campbell, coming out of turn 9, there was already the move over straight away, and that's to try and break slipstream. That's to try and just delay them a little bit, keep them on their toes in a sense, but basically making the decision that I'm going to be over this side of the track. If you're going to get by me, you've got to do something about where I am. Proactive defence in that way. You'll see it coming out of the final corner that Gergis will instantly pull them over to the pit wall just to try and break them. There it goes, all the way over, but this time trying to react Zach Campbell, the weaving, just trying to break that slipstream. Is the Lambo going to be fast enough this time by though?
Ooh, it's closer than it's been, but I don't think it's close enough. And in terms of raw horsepower numbers, well, there's 2 stories being told about the Mercedes. Excuse me, no, I'm getting confused. The Mercedes is quoted at 500 horsepower by the iRacing team. The Lamborghini, curiously, also quoted at 500 horsepower, but slightly heavier, and that's before the extra balance of performance that we had from race control. So who knows what these cars are looking like. Heinrich once more just pokes his nose to the inside. There is nothing doing there. With 7 minutes left to go, Dane Warren continues to build up the gap. Now 3.3 seconds clear from his teammates, and I really do wonder if you're Mitchell de Jong, how aggressive do you go on your teammate? There you can see some more of that cone murder. How aggressive do you go on your teammate here, Lewis? Because of course, Coanda has already made contact with one another, not once, but twice so far this season. I don't think they'll be too happy to have a third one with only 3 races done.
Yeah, you don't want another one in this race. They've already had one this race. We'll tick that one off. The 93's returned to the race lead and have cleared away from everyone, so that one's all been settled down. You do not want to see it again, and you don't want to set it as a trend, especially in a series where this, and of course the challenge as well, where we've seen a lot of this teammates coming together. We've seen so much this season already, and we're only in the 4th race of this season, the 3rd race of this season, the 7th in total. You don't want to be adding to them too much. So for me, moderately aggressive. The door's open, you go for it. If not, you take your lumps. 3rd spot on a podium is a good way to start the evening.
Here's a look then at 2nd and 3rd. You can see it's only a car length, if that, between the 2 of them, and Pekka Toivonen is reeling them in. The gap at one point was down to 1.2. Zach Campbell trying to get the move done. Can he set something up to head in towards turn number 4? Looking better in through the opening couple of corners. This is where the Mercedes grunt and wait might just push it slightly wide. I don't think Campbell was able to get on the power nicely enough. Gergis does a good job to park it on the apex of that corner, and Campbell sends it under the brakes, but I think more in response to the moves from Heinrich behind.
Yeah, sun's probably out now. You can see it's getting quite bright. It's getting very, very sunny at the circuit. There's still 5 minutes left to go in this race. There's still plenty of opportunities for these to do something about their current position. They desperately want to move up just a little bit further. It's just for extra couple of points. I know it doesn't sound like much, but we're talking about a championship where points the slightest of margins, the point here, the point there, you don't want to get to the end of the season and think, oh, if I'd only scored a couple more points here, then we would have been up another spot, another 2 spots in the championship. So this is very, very important for their fight towards some of the prize money. And right now, there's just absolutely no way past this Merc. This will be frustrating. This will be exceptionally frustrating for Zach Campbell. Pash Gergis will be sat there thinking, this is perfect. This is great. This is exactly what I want. Almost relaxed.
Side by side, we can see first the battle on the left-hand side as Gergis continues to defend 6th. I wonder, is Mitchell de Jong close enough to have a look, or is he being told no moves to come because Kova is lurking behind? No such team orders. Down the inside comes the number 91 car. Going to be fought by the Lego car. De Jong makes a mistake. That gives Kova the podium position. The number 91 car down to 4th.
Whoa, wow, that... You do not see that too much, and to be honest, I was expecting there to be teammate contact there because I'm pretty sure de Jong was losing it. He was focused on saving his own car. That could have very, very easily been tears for the Lego Technic Esports car, and Kova would have been laughing all the way to the bank. They still might well be, because they're within a second now of the Lego Technic car. They'll be getting the wisp of that slipstream. They'll be closing in a little bit further as Maniti Racing are past Bieler down in 8th spot, as that battle is going to continue. So we are seeing our first change in this group finally, as Heinrich's going to lose a position to the bonga drum that is on the charge.
The war drum's clearly in good effect, and as Zach Campbell gets loose, Maniti Racing will be sizing up a 7th place finish. Of course, missed race number 1, or race weekend number 1, back in action here. Solid points then for the Mercedes in the number 78. 3 minutes left on the clock, and as I'm watching your race leader come around, we'll take a look at this race replay just on the inside curve, and I tell you what, de Jong does a good job to not lose that car in a full 360. Only a second or 2 lost there.
Do you want to know what will help? I mean, I'm not going to say this is the exact thing, but Rallycross would have helped a little bit in that. I know it's a 4-wheel drive versus a rear-wheel drive, and a GT3 versus a Rallycross car, but still, always drive plenty of different cars, because it does teach you various little tricks to get through, and that was quite a slide, and I think a lesser driver would have been backwards at that point, but we know the skill of Mitchell de Jong, the car control, the finesse that he has behind the wheel, and yeah, sure, they're off the podium, but it could have been much worse.
And, well, someone like de Jong is so talented. iRacing Rallycross inaugural world champion. Also a multi-time winner now in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series, breaking the stranglehold that Bobby Zelensky has had on the road courses. But I think this is a slightly different challenge. Of course, a rear-engine Porsche 911 GT3R, relatively new to the iRacing service, and clearly de Jong, with a very busy race schedule, is still getting up to speed, I would say, with that car on board with Heinrich as we ride in 9th position. Gergis has done a stellar job to stop the charge of the bull behind him, but now has really opened the door, I think, for Maniti Racing, who are coming on strong. It will be the white flag in the air next time around, so there will be one more opportunity for passes to happen down into turn 1.
Yeah, and Cobra will be the one most hungry for that, because they are now right on the rear end of the Lego Technic car and closing in through the final sector. There's your race leader. I mean, where have they been all day long? Running away from everyone else. Dane Warren presently behind the wheel and nearly 5 seconds clear. This is absolute domination at Barcelona. But who is going to be behind them? Is it going to be the same 2 that we've seen in 1st and 2nd in the previous 2 races of the championship? Or are we going to see the Lego Technic car taking the runner-up spot?
It's not going to be the Daniel Ricciardo Sen, that's for sure, but never say never. We saw so many different places passes can be made in the GT4s yesterday. What will happen here in the VRS SCO Sprint Masters? It's Pekka Toivonen chasing down the Lego Technic car as BS Competition bundled down to 12th. Inertia in their Mercedes trying to get on through side by side on the exit of turn 1. It's Mercedes on the inside. The BMW has the outside line, able to roll onto the power slightly earlier. Look at Urano in the Lamborghini behind. They'll be licking their chops. If anything happens here, they'll be ready to pounce. This will become the inside line for BS Competition. They're slightly slightly tight, I would say, through the mid portion of the corner. Inside line still to them, though. Almost contact there as Inertia tries to squeeze.
Yeah, Maniti also passed Apex. It's all happening here on the final lap. BS Competition do gain the position. Urano also a part of this as they run down the hill. Kaidasoa might lose out here to Nazra as well. Running down into turn 7, but almost taking advantage. And look at that, VRS Commander also a part of the mix. The 81 gains a spot.
Getting on past the Urano car with, I think, some opportunistic passing. There is not much going on for second. It's only a couple of tenths, but it's too little, too late for Kova. In the meantime, it's the championship leaders. It's Dane Warren, it's Charlie Collins. For the second race in a row, they will take the checkered flag. They will extend their championship advantage in style. Slight drift to finish things on. Dane Warren looking very, very calm, and you can see his family member in the background. Not sure how you'd feel about that, Lewis, because to be honest, when I used to race and my family was in town, I used to kick them out of my house. They had to go find somewhere else to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Get out of my room. I'm driving. I'm focusing. You can leave. Thank you very much. Gotta say, Valkyrie Esports there, they had a bit of side-by-side running through the final section. There's been so many changes on this final lap. This is absolute madness. Valkyrie have gained a position. Apex Racing Team dropped down from, I think, 7th even, or 8th rather, down to 10th. BS Competition obviously having that battle with Inertia over the final lap. VRS Commander, the 81 car, worked up a couple of positions on the final lap and I believe has become the highest climber of the race. So much happening in that final section of the race. Madness.
And of course, for the Apex Racing Lamborghini, that is valuable points that he will have lost out there in the closing stages. But full points go to the Welshman and the driver from the land down under. It's another late night for Dane Warren and family. He's all in the chat. You can see there's some front wing damage or front splitter damage on the number 93 car, but clearly not affecting the performance from them. It was a dominant display. They take victory by more than 5 full seconds from their teammate. You can see the gap, though, between Tommy Alsgaard and Pekka Toivonen at the line. Just 0.3 of a second. For Kova Esports, they are looking strong at a track they did not necessarily think they would be as comfortable as they're looking. Mitchell de Jong, late race mistake, drops him to 4th position with Kevin Ellis Jr. rounding out the top 5. Pash Gergis in 6th, able to hold on, but Ruben Bongo moved his way up through the field in the second half of that race. Maniti Racing back in Sports Car Open competition. They finish in 7th spot. Patrick Heinrich, Kenny Rusin, and Zach Campbell the rest of the top 10. With 11th position going to BS Competition and Felix Quirnbach. Matti Kaidasoa in the Inertia Euro RC Mercedes finishes in 12th. Not far behind the car in front, but not far in front of Martin Kroenke in the number 81, 13th position to the Coanda team. Urano 14th and 15th. They'll be hoping for some better luck in race number 2 with Oskari Rine, Lucas Jestad, Vlad Kimichev, Arturo Melgar, and Kieran Harrison rounding out the top 20. Only one retirement, which is Jarl T, and everyone else finishing on the lead lap. Vendaval, Energy Simsport, Pure Sims Esports, Arnage Competition, R8G, Williams Esports, Razor, Core Sim Racing, and the second of the Energy Ferraris. Not the easiest day for all of them. Well, they will have to rebound, qualifying only about 10 minutes away for race number 2. Fastest lap on the day does go to Dane Warren with a 1:41.854, and the word from his family here, Lewis, that's his brother in his sim room.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, look, I've raced with people before who are plenty good enough at dealing with distractions. There was someone who I used to race with who had his mum doing the washing up in the background. I'm like, no, that's way too much distraction. I need to focus on what I'm doing. And focus was the name of the game down at turn 1. We were seeing 2 and 3 wide all the way through the opening portion of this race. And as naturally what you'd expect with a rolling start at Barcelona, it was pretty crazy. Did not catch that contact from Kova into the side of the Apex car at turn 1.
Multiple contacts with the Kova car then on the start. Of course, the brief moment with Joshua Rogers in the checkup at the start, but no damage, it would appear, to the BMW. It was rather chaotic on the opening lap, but no real issues until we got to turn number 10 and Lacaxia, where it was a Pure Sims Audi that made the mistake under the brakes. We're going to see some incredible 2-wide action, almost 3 rows, 4 rows deep, as you can see Williams Esports trying to make hay on the start. It was a disappointing day for them to drop down through the field. Here, though, is that incident. Pure Sims and Daniel Ferguson just missing the breaking point, and well, the 77 of Energy Simsport really the biggest loser. As a result of this, we then saw 3 wide coming out of the final corner. I think a slowdown being served by Jarl Tien. And well, he's on the outside, or I should say inside of the track. Audi shoves the Ferrari off into the Inex car, and well, it was a Jarl flip for the 57.
Yeah, not the greatest way to start. You get a slowdown penalty running through the penultimate corner if you cut it a little bit too much on the inside. Did seem to be the way that Jarl Tien had at that point. As we've got the Apex and Biela car that were going side by side. This is just post pit stop. Zach Campbell was able to stick it around the outside of Patrick Heinrich, given the inside on that run down the hill through turn 5. We did see quite a bit of this, and that's the whole thing about setting up your move through that fourth corner to give you the inside into turn 5, and we did see that action playing out a few times. I think particularly on the final lap of the race, Patrick Heinrich gave it a good go a few times, just wasn't quite able to throw it down there at turn 4.
And here's one of the incidents for the Williams car. This is already after they were down, mired in the mid-pack of the top 20th through 30th. It was R&R just bundling them off the road into the portion of the track that the rallycross cars do use, and then we would see the Williams car end up at the tail end of the field. Here, though, was the big moment that we really wanted to talk about. It was Mitchell de Jong with an uncharacteristic mistake trying to get to the inside of his teammate Tommy Osgaard, and well, onto the inside curve, almost snaps around. Wonderful car control, but that let Kova get up into the top 3.
Inertia and BS Competition battling it out. Urano was also a part of this battle. BS Competition potentially trying something on strategy just outside of the top 10 battle. Urano were trying to find their way through, but you keep your eye in the background for that VRS Coanda car that wanted to fight its way through, getting past the Urano car and up another position, gaining an extra point, and just trying to find progress where they made so easily in the early stages. This team, though, the 93, it was all about them. Charlie Collins, Dane Warren, absolute perfection.
And well, I mean, I must say, very, very impressed by 2 newcomers relatively to the Coanda squad. Of course, Collins only joined earlier this year after the World Championship qualifiers had completed in 2020. The Welshman's rapid, the Australian is rapid. 2 very promising young drivers. And I mean, when you have someone like Joshua Rogers in the field paired up with such an experienced driver like Mitchell de Jong, all focus was meant to be on the 91 car heading into this championship, but no, it's the 93 car from Coanda that leads their championship hunt.
Yeah, and I am all for this because it's applying pressure inside the team. We love to see it because the thing is, what we're seeing now is we're seeing Mitchell de Jong and Josh Rogers, who were coming into it not necessarily as the favourites, but they were the team that we were more so focused on, the team that we were very much keeping our eye out for. Now they have to respond. They have to do the work. They have to see what the 93 is doing. And most importantly, this is what we have to see as well, it's in the same machinery, so they've got to answer those kind of questions directly on pace and perfection.
And very likely they'll be using a very similar sort of a setup. So we are just getting ready to go to race number 2. We might have a couple of minutes delay here as they just work through some various server issues that they are just diagnosing right now. Just a reminder, it's a good time to do that you can head on over to giveaway.sportscaropen.com to enter yourself to win one of 6 LEGO Technic 911 RSRs, and an entry into each of those does also grant you access to the season-long giveaway of a VRS Direct Force Pro wheelbase. A lot of the drivers in today's grid are using that. Why not get yourself entered? It's free at the end of the day, and free stuff is great. We're still waiting, Lewis, for you and I to get our own LEGO Technic 911 RSRs. We will, and I promise you, we will have our own little LEGO building competition before the end of this season.
Maybe that'll be the mid-season break. Of course, we're in a 3-week back-to-back round here at the moment, and we have the same 3-week back-to-back round at the end of the season, the triple headers to bookend the season, which means we do have a bit of a break as well, a bit of a 24-hour race in there, so you know it's going to be a bit spicy. But that, I think, is where we need to do our little build-off as well.
Maybe we have to do it live on Twitch as well. Who knows? Absolutely. I will say, let's talk a little bit about that 24-hour race while we wait for the race control guys to figure things out and let us know what's going on. 24 hours at Spa. Yes, there's going to be, the iRacing official one. That will be the week before. But this is a totally different ballgame. $10,000 on the line. the drivers you're seeing today, they'll be automatically eligible to enter, but that only means 30 grid spots might be locked and loaded. Everyone who's watching can still pre-qualify to get the remaining grid spots.
Yeah, we spoke with a lot of the the iRacing special events where you come along, you take part as your team. It's not about, obviously it is about winning, but it's not prize money. You're just driving yourself. You're trying to win. You're trying to enjoy it. It's a bit of a social thing. You're trying to have a bit of fun, etc. However, now we have prize money on the table for an endurance race. This is a slightly different ballgame, and other teams and drivers will react to that pressure better than others.
And I mean, when you think about it, it's what, $35,000 in prize money across July and August being handed out by the VRS and SCO guys. It's really nice that we have a new influx of GT3 machinery, the Lamborghini, the BMW, and the Porsche, but also the competition level is returning to where it was back in the World Championship days.
Yeah, we are seeing it's net. We've had it. High level of competition always somewhere in sim racing throughout the last 20 years. There's always been that hot spot of fantastic competition, seeing the biggest names go toe to toe. However, with the way that sim racing is becoming more and more accessible, we're seeing more and more names being able to reach that kind of pace. We're not seeing necessarily one driver being able to stomp the rest of the field. It's more about everyone else's great. It's just to be a Josh Rogers, to be a Mitchell de Jong in that kind of sense. You have to find what is effectively just 2/10 rather than half a second. And we're in this almost golden age of sim racing that seems to somehow, every week we come back to it, find more strength and new drivers to come to the fore.
And it's great to see, it's not just about real-world drivers coming over into the sim world like we saw, throughout the entirety of 2020. Now it's about seeing real sim drivers stepping over into the real world. Of course, Moritz Lohner, one of those biggest names competing in the DTM Trophy in the GT4. Second place on his debut. What a weekend that would have been for him. So plenty of time, I think, for us to now just talk a little bit about the action in race number 1 while Race Control gets things sorted out. And really, it wasn't as hectic as maybe I thought after watching the GT4s yesterday, Lewis, but still so many different groupings of cars. The competition level, like you said, is really, really close. And if anything, it's not that the one driver is any slower than another. It's the fact that you're racing so hard, costing each other time that allowed your leader to run away.
Yeah, see, that's what it was. It was all about the side-by-side. How many corners did we count them going side-by-side, 2, 3 wide even, at various points, running around the opening sector of the lap. And all that allowed was VRS Commander, who weren't playing that game. They were doing their own thing. They were going single file. It just allowed them to bridge what was effectively a second gap. That second being so critical, because it just broke the slipstream from the pack that was chasing whilst they were battling it out. Just slowed them down bit by bit. No disrespect to Sven Haase, but there just wasn't the pace in that Lamborghini to close it down. And by the time that Kova got through, well, it was already too late.
And really, Pekka Toivonen, we did mention it during the race. He's the reserve driver / team manager, Lewis. So he's had to step in for Antti Ahola in these first couple of race weekends. But by the regulations, 2 races are done for him. He will not be eligible to compete in any more. And I know Antti Ahola is a very strong driver, but really, Pekka has been a revelation, taking the charge to the Coanda drivers out front.
Yeah, really superb stuff. I mean, Kova this season so far have been fantastic, haven't they? Let's be honest. They've been consistent. So far, they've finished on all 3 spots of the podium, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. What can they do in the 4th race of the season? Whilst their main championship rivals now are 2nd, 1st, and a 1st, they need to respond to that. They need to come back. They need to come into this race heavy and try and take a race win at a circuit where they say themselves the BMW is not really the favoured vehicle. It's about that Porsche that Coanda have adapted to so well.
Well, I tell you what, while we get our way in towards the 2nd race, let's take one more look at our track guide for this week. One of the nicest guys in all of sim racing, Jamie Fluke, talks you through the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya.
Welcome to the VRS Circuit Walk for round 2 of the VRS SCO Sprint Series at Barcelona. I'm VRS driver coach Jamie Fluke, driver with the number 99 Apex Racing Team Lamborghini Huracan GT3. One of the most utilised tracks in motor racing, Barcelona is a common stop for any European-based racing series. What makes this stop unique though will be the layout, as we're racing on the historic layout which sees the faster hairpin and the faster final 2 corners. This will raise average speeds quite a bit and really put an emphasis on aerodynamic balance, as too much drag will see you slow down the straights, but too little downforce will see you struggle in the fast sweepers. Let's take a closer peek at what this layout has in store for the drivers. Right at the start, we can't ignore the 1 kilometer straight to start the lap. You'll be hitting about 255 kph as you enter the braking zone, and this will easily make turn 1 the best passing area on the track. However, you have to be committed into turn 1. If you fail to complete the pass, the switch back through turns 2 and 3 will allow cars to make moves as the advantage flip-flops from corner to corner. Turn 5 has a lot of potential to bring fireworks. While it doesn't have a super long run in to set up a pass, keen drivers will look to make deep dives on the brakes into the downhill apex. As such, we will need to keep an eye on the mirrors for any lunges while on the brakes. The first big unknown for drivers is turn 10. Typically the tighter hairpin is used, so this wider version will be interesting to see if passes can regularly be made. This elongated version definitely makes a pass here a lower percentage move, but it wouldn't be surprising if some inventive drivers manage to make it stick. Then as we come up to the final sector, we get the biggest shakeup of the lap. This version of turn 12 has been missed by racing fans ever since this chicane was added to the final sector. This fast right-hander will see the drivers just breathing the throttle to make the corner, a big change up from the 3 90-degree corners on the modern layout. Then with the extra speed from turn 12, turn 13 becomes an entirely new challenge. Now drivers will need to set the nose more precisely, and behind traffic you'll need to mind the dirty air to get a good run back down the long front straight. Let's take a look now at the onboard lap and see a driver's eye view of Barcelona Historic. So starting the lap here at Barcelona Historic, the key thing to get a good lap around here is to start off with a good run out of the final corner, so you don't lose any time down the front straight here. Make sure to time your shifts correctly as well, and give yourself plenty of time to spot your braking point over on the left hand side before turn 1 here. Hard on the brakes and down into second gear, getting as tight to the inside as you can, and hold it tight to help open out turn 2, and once again holding it quite tight to open out turn 3. The first 2 corners you sort of need to sacrifice for turn 3. Coming to the exit of turn 3, the left rear will start to struggle a lot here, so just do be careful at the back end trying to step out. Turn forward, braking just before the bridge there, and aggressively attacking the inside once again, keeping the car tight to allow us to get the wheel straight and get traction coming off the corner. Bring the car hard over to the right hand side for turn 5, and again we want to get nice and tight to the inside here, and get the car straight and nice and quickly so we can get a good clean exit. Turn 6, there's nothing to it, so we need to set up turn 7, braking just before the curb on the right and getting hard over the inside curb to give ourselves room to avoid the sausage curb coming through turn 8. Turn 9, big fast sweeper, attacking the inside curb here, but being careful not to run too far wide here, as the track limits do play a role here. Let the car ease over to the right hand side, setting up turn 10, braking between the 100 and the 50, and getting the car nice and tight to the inside here. Not arcing out too far wide, as that increases the distance that we're travelling, before setting up turn 11. Down into second gear, it's a very tricky, long sweeping corner, where traction is also limited, so cars may struggle through here. Turn 12, an absolute joy of a corner, use plenty of curb on the inside and on the way out, and then finally a small dab of brake for the 13th and final corner, make sure not to run out into the gravel, and that's lap of Barcelona Historic. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the second presentation of VRS track walks for the VRS SCO Sprint Series. Hockenheim was a roller coaster of a race, so be sure to tune in this Saturday to see some of the best on iRacing continue to fight for their share of $25,000.
So last week it was Josh Rogers talking us through Hockenheim. This time Jamie Fluke with a tour around Spain. Who knows who will get in the next 4 rounds of this championship. Qualifying is underway, and Lewis, for race number 2, things get swapped around. The drivers that qualified in race number 1 are watching on from the sidelines. We said it last week, there really is no place to hide.
Yeah, you've got to deliver, and this is the thing. It's interesting to see drivers attacking it from different sides. I like the idea that you don't have to. In endurance racing, you always say, this driver, he's the qualifying driver. He's the one that starts the race. They're the one that gets behind the wheel in the early stages. None of that here. You've got to deliver, and you may learn things about yourself when you're driving in this. When you're competing in an ultra competitive field like this, where you've normally allowed the other driver to qualify, you've sat back a little bit and let things happen, whereas now it's your turn to take over. You may learn some things about yourself and might find yourself as being a qualifying driver.
I tell you what, before we take a look at the on-track action where I've already seen some passes down into turn number 10, that's what I was just keeping my eyes on as we work into the first flying laps of the session. Let's take a look at our driver wall once more and the faces that you'll be able to see. A couple of different faces to look at this time. Look at Phil Denez, always great to look at a driver with real-world experience. Kenny Roosten has a helmet next to him. Carl Janssen, of course, a very, very rapid driver. He's doing the qualifying duties and working himself through this first part of the session. I did see some chat about Jeremy Boutaloop and the green screen behind him. That's not for us. That's for his Twitch stream. A lot of these drivers, of course, do have onboard views. You can, of course, head to Twitch to follow along with a number of them. But like I said, qualifying is underway. Almost 3 minutes already done. Let's see what these flying lap times are going to look like. Because, of course, we did mention it, Lewis, during that first qualifying session. Temperatures have cooled down even more. It's not as cloudy as we saw in that first race, but because we're racing now at almost 7:30 in the evening, track temperatures are 27 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, because of the slight issues as well getting into this, they only had a 5-minute practice. They normally have a little bit longer in practice, so they at least can get out on track and have a slightly relevant run. Whereas in this, they were only given 5 minutes. It means no one really got any sort of relevant lap times done in the session prior to it. They don't really know exactly what lap times to expect. Based on the fact that we're running around about 5-10 degrees colder than in the previous session, I would estimate that we're going to see them running more so towards the mid 40s is roughly where I'm expecting. It was a 40.971 as reference that Tommy Osgaard set in session 1. Straight into the mid 40s, the number 93, into the low 40s, those goes the 91.
And of course, such a rapid qualifier. What did we expect? It's going to be difficult, I think, for the number 93 to try and unseat Joshua Rogers. On board with Ricardo Ferreira in the pink Arnage competition car across the line to start a lap time, or complete a lap time. It's only 12 fastest, but of course, these are the banker laps. We'll see as they get faster throughout the session, because the great thing here, we said it in the qualifying one, once you're out of qualifying, if that means you've had a crash or whatever happens that requires you to tow back to pit road, just like in the real world, Lewis, you are done for the remainder of the qualifying session.
Yeah, it's why it's crucial. Over the 20-minute session, unlike a counter to regular qualifying, you need to build yourself up into the session. You need to become a part of the session itself. Treat it more like it is in the real world. Don't go out there trying to set the world alight on your very, very first lap. Just go out and just slowly approach the track. Just try and get a banker lap onto the board. Make sure it's a legal one. Don't run too far wide, particularly in that final sector, because it's so easy to do. Just slowly build yourself into the session. And I mean, you could ask Josh Rogers to do that and he'll just say no thank you very much. Already a pole position in the series so far this season. That was in the second race last time out. We know that Josh is incredibly fast, and we know that they're going to try and prove that here today. And once again, right up there in the start of the session, he just knows how to turn it on straight away.
I called it Ayrton Senna syndrome, wasn't it, last time, when it's just that innate ability to go fast at the end of a session, find those couple of tenths of a second. And, well, a different challenge to what he's usually had in the World Championships with this group qualifying, but always a very rapid driver. Mac Backham, we saw him having some fun in that interview video. One of the few drivers, I think, to actually put some effort into his engine noises. He does enjoy, I think, this 911 GT3R. It's a very different proposition to a lot of the other GT3 cars that we have on the service, Lewis. The only rear engine car, and really, once you get behind the wheel of it, you can tell that it is a completely different animal to the other cars.
Some drivers love it. Some drivers really, really love the way a Porsche drives, the way it sort of flows a little bit. It dances. It absolutely dances around the track. And some drivers love that stuff. Other drivers despise it. They think, no, I'd rather a car that's literally like driving a cross-channel ferry around the track. And, you know, unfortunately, I'd be more in the second camp, I'm afraid. I do I prefer myself a bit of an understeery car. It just matches my driving style a little bit more. The way that these dance, it's very, very hard. But if you can drive that, the speed that you can extract from the car is really, really impressive. And obviously, VRS SCO and anyone on this grid, they're very good at extracting the most from a car. It's properly hard work, though, to pull that out lap after lap, because you're constantly playing with fire and dancing on a knife's edge.
And when the iRacing service eventually gets rain, the Porsche is, I think, going to be the car you want to be when you get those downpours. Of course, known for rain dances in the past, and just how controllable it can be with the weight on the rear tires, able to get the power down just that little bit earlier. Urano in the 95 letting a number of cars on passes. We now wait for the second set of flying lap times. We've already seen cars down onto pit road getting a fresh set of rubber. Let's jump on board with the core sim racing car as he comes down into pit road. Yanni Kiru behind the wheel right now. Looks like he's got those triple monitors that we were talking about during Pash Gergis's stint. Of course, interesting to see these top-level drivers with so many different type of racing setups. You've got the full-blown rigs, you've got some homemade contraptions, if you will. But of course, all of these guys, they show us every time that it's not the equipment that makes you fast, it's your ability and just that ability to find the tenths of a second that mere mortals like you and me, Lewis, just sometimes can't find.
Pretty sure, I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure when Yaltien was driving in the NASCAR Coke Series and also various other places all over the place, pretty sure he was driving on a G29. I don't think he is anymore. I can't say that one for absolute certainty. But, you know, I mean, that's interesting itself, considering the amount of pace that was taken out of a wheel like that, battling with people on direct drives and whatnot. And again, it just proves the point that it's not about the equipment itself, it's about the driver. The equipment does help though, more so I'd say in consistency rather than with pace. It just gives you that extra bit of information that's, you know, what's going on, but you can drive past it, as we see time and time again. Not having to drive past those Coanda guys, they've got some very, very fancy equipment themselves, so you know, they're giving themselves the best opportunity to take top on us, and well, that's exactly what this car's been doing.
And well, I would just like to say, when it comes to the oval side of things, for years I heard that there were drivers that would turn force feedback off when it came to running in the top level, and you know, clearly I'm just not as good a driver as them, because you take away basically the only sense feedback that you get directly from the sim. Of course, you still have visual feedback, but it's very difficult to try and just determine what the car is doing from the visual indications. As you see right side of the screen, it's Urano dragging the Pure Sims Audi that of course had a bit of a nightmare down into turn 10 in race number 1. They'll be hoping to turn their fortunes around. Here comes Charlie Collins in through the final sector in the final couple of corners. He's got his teammate behind him. I believe that's the 91 car of Joshua Rogers and Mitchell DeYoung. Of course, Rogers taking those qualifying duties. Here we come then, final corner. What will it be? 93's in second, at least for the time being. His teammates down onto pit road. The lap time for Collins, it is quicker, but it is not quick enough. Collins stays in second.
I mean, this is just it. This is classic Josh Rogers. You know there's that pace in the car. So, you know, like you say, the Ayrton Senna syndrome just absolutely nails it. Already back into pit lane, by the way, as we're seeing some slight improvements. Urano Esports HK up to third position. Apex Racing Team jumped up into fifth. Already dropped down into 7th spot, so that improvement quite clearly wasn't enough. So we're seeing the other Urano car out of the final corner, goes up into 6th, does Melchers.
Great to see Urano kind of bouncing back. It's not been an easiest of times for them in qualifying, but the Lamborghini of Daniel Pastor has put it into provisional third. And of course, a team that has multiple German national championships in the GT3 cars. Of course, we talked about split cars. These guys have one Lamborghini, one Audi. Always makes things interesting when it comes to preparation, because we talked about, you know, having 3 Porsches for Coanda. That's going to mean they can share car insight, whereas for the Urano team, Lewis, it's not necessarily about the cars, you know, per se, even though the Audi and the Lamborghini are very, very similar. It's instead going to be talking strategy, talking tactics, and how they want to work these 60-minute races.
Like we brought up the fact that it's a 60-minute race. It's not the most amazing strategy to it. It's a 10-minute window that's open, so you don't really have too many options to answer. But still, we've seen varying strategies, very, very interestingly applying over the 3 races that we've had thus far in the championship. And the thing is you need to come into this series constantly learning, constantly being able to look at other people's strategy, look at what's made this team, this car, this outfit fast. And how do we take the advantage of that? I'm sure a lot of people were looking at BS competition last round and thinking, okay, they were doing quite a bit on tyres. Same with Coanda to a slightly lesser extent. They were doing some slightly different things on tyres, trying their own on strategy, trying to do their own thing. that's something that you need to learn at as a grid. It can't be ignored. Phil Denez up to 5th spot, so nice improvement.
He is a very, very quick driver, known, of course, in the real world for being on the road to Indy, part of course, that ladder that leads, of course, to the NTT IndyCar Series, but has been part of this BS competition team for a while, has very much made a name for himself on the sim as a very rapid competitor. He sits in 5th, 3.5 tenths behind your pole position sitter. Only 2 tenths separating 2nd through 5th. You can just see the margin that Rogers has got at this point in time. Trying to take a look at where Rogers is right now. He is coming through to start a flying lap time. Let's jump on board with the number 91 car and ride around the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya, down into turn 1. Uses all of the curb on the inside to set himself up for turn 2, where just getting that run in towards turn 3 and up the hill into Repsol corner. You can see hugging the inside and then tracking out wide, a bit of opposite lock as the car is trying to step out from underneath him, braking just before the bridge as you throw yourself down. Once more, you can see that car is very happy to slide around, but Rogers clearly handling the challenge very nicely. Down the hill, set yourself up on the right-hand side to break into this left-hand corner, but it's not necessarily the easiest traction zone. You can see running wide. Sometimes when you're on that curbing, the rear wheels will just slide from underneath you. Turn 7, avoid the anti-cut curb that's coming up here on the outside at all costs, because it can sometimes spit you into the path of other cars. Right hand up the hill, it's a slight dab on the brakes as you track out wide here and use all of the runoff on offer to get yourself down this back straightaway. He's getting some draft from the number 93 car as he heads himself down into La Caxia. This is the alternate corner that has been used in the past, now very much used as the main corner when F1 comes here as well. Final sector, you can see this is cambered in very slightly, but as you crest the hill and get onto the power, the track falls away from you. Don't turn right just yet, 90 degrees. Instead, it's the old penultimate corner. So much speed carried in through that part of the track as now Rogers through the final corner. Watch for the lap time here. I don't know if it's been the cleanest lap to say the very least, and indeed it's a couple of tenths slower, but still a very fast lap time from the number 91.
So you told them to avoid that sausage curb down at turn 8, and look at the front of that car. There is damage on the front end, and that is also it. We saw the damage on the front end of the 93 at the end of the race. Now, that car didn't make contact with anyone on the front end. His teammate, the Lego car, the Lego Technic Esports car, made contact with the rear end of them. So there'd be damage on the front of that car as that moves up into 7th spot. But you've got to question when they're running over that sausage curb. It can really cause damage to the car itself. It will break part of the car, which, whilst necessarily didn't slow them down in the previous race. Well, it can backfire if you're not careful. So I'm sure they'll be keeping their eye on that and making sure they don't do that in the race. Don't make those kind of mistakes once again. I mean, it seemed like a good lap from Josh Rogers. You did see it was a little bit oversteery too much at points, particularly in the final section, just dropping the rear ever so slightly. But it looked pretty clean to me.
On board with the Energy SimSport Ferrari across the line. What's the lap time going to be here? Oh, it is very nice indeed. They're up into the top 10. We've got some new faces making their way up here. Energy in 8th. You've got the Urano cars, both of them in that top 10. No Apex Racing representation just yet, and I did notice Kova in the 7 car. They've bumped themselves up to 3rd position, looking very strong for Tumas Tatula as he comes down onto pit road. Fresh set of rubber going on there. He'll head back out for one final attempt as I see the Inertia Mercedes now up into the top 12.
Yeah, seeing some improvements right now, but a lot of teams will be preparing themselves for the final stint. The 91 into pit lane. The 93's crossed the line and has improved, has closed down the gap, but not enough. The previous lap being a 40.419 from Charlie Collins with 3 minutes and 50 seconds. It's not necessarily session done. If they can race back to pit lane, get in there, get tyres changed and get back out again, which, let's be honest, that's a pretty tall order to do in that time, there might well just be enough time to set another lap time, although I'm not fully convinced by that. I get the vibe that the 419 that car set might be the time they are going to qualify on. Great lap time to put in, just puts them ever so slightly out of reach from Kova behind, and Kova now have to do the work to try and get. Maybe this is it though, Tina. Maybe we're seeing Collins, the 93. Desperate to qualify in 2nd. Maybe they're going for that stat to continue.
It did indeed continue, and I will say that it is been a Coanda lockout in terms of pole position so far, and I don't think anything is going to change with how things are looking. It will be tight for 93 to get around, but I do think they have enough time to do so as they work their way into turn number 10. There goes Urano getting on past Maniti, who are setting themselves up for the flying lap next time around. Daniel Pastor currently in 4th. Couple of corners to go, and this is where the Lamborghini might struggle a bit. These are the slower speed corners, of course leading yourself onto that back straightaway where potentially they are slightly down on power. Get a view not just of the rig, but of course the room that he's in. This is truly a sim racing room. You can see the diecast that he's got behind him as well. Down onto pit road, he will have enough time to roll out, but it's going to be very, very marginal.
Yeah, it's going to be tight. They've got to. I'm not sure. I'm not sure they will. I'm not because there's 2 minutes 10 seconds. They've got to get in and get everything sorted as if it is in the race. It's they can't pull over and escape. They have to come in. They have to box. They have to treat it as if it's a race session. Considering the change of tyres, refueling, they've not got enough time. I think it's session done. Anyone not leaving the pit lane, realistically, about now, that's it. Session done. The inertia car that's just leaving there,
they'll miss out. They'll miss out. It's going to be... I mean, you got to get yourself up to speed as well. The 140 lap time includes you already being at racing speed when you come across the start-finish line. So I think it's done there. Maybe for Kova and for Joshua Rogers behind. One more flying lap time. Rogers will be in the draft of Tatala. He's a bit too close if you ask me as we come across the line. Here we go. Just under 90 seconds to go. Final lap times about to come through.
Absolute genius from Josh Rogers, because you have to sit there and you have to think there's a bit of traffic coming out of pit lane. Why? It's going to ruin Thomas Tatala's lap. Oh, this is already going to be over. I mean, not quite. They've not lost too much time there. That's going to ruin the lap anyway. Not sure why anyone was leaving the pit lane at this time. If I was Tatala, I'd have been a bit distracted and, to be honest, quite annoyed. The reason why I was saying absolute genius from Josh Rogers is because regardless, if Tatala was going to improve there and was going to set a time to beat the 40.371 that Josh Rogers has right now, then Rogers is in the prime position to instantly beat it, because sat in the slipstream, and if that lap's going to be good and you're keeping that gap, maybe even closing it down in the slipstream, then you're instantly responding. You're keeping your eye on your competitor. I just kind of feel that for Quinton Violette that came out of pit lane there, that's not good.
It's a bit naughty, and I think as Tumas Tatala's teammate Valtteri Alander is in our Twitch chat right now, just why? Not really understanding the logic there. 10 seconds left to go as Phil Denez coming through. This is his lap time. I don't know if he has enough time to go again, given the state of his tires, but he does slightly improve. He will hold on to that 5th position. Checkered flag is officially out, and if you have come across the line, you can finish your lap. Everyone else is done for qualifying. I'm watching Joshua Rogers. What is he going to do? He is still out there on track. The question is, does he improve? A 1:40.371 is the benchmark for the number 91 car. Across the line, he finds those tenths of a second. Ayrton Senna syndrome. It's just in the air here for Joshua Rogers.
But he had to avoid a car. He had to avoid the Kova car spinning out. How did he gain time?
A draft, maybe.
I get the draft from the start finish, but he had that, and then also had to avoid the code, which I think maybe he avoided it in a lucky way. It went off in the right direction, and I'm almost speechless. Incredible.
What a driver Joshua Rogers is. And I mean, I will say, with Dane Warren as part of the VRS Commander team, it's not just one quick Australian that they've got, but now a second Australian is added to the mix. Maniti Racing, I don't think this is a lap time for them. Indeed, Tim Matska is practicing his pit entry. Look at that focus there. For the first time, we've seen the open mouth. Not always what you see from the drivers, but I must say, I do love the intensity on his face. He'll have to calm himself down now. He'll hand it on over to Ruben Bonga to start things off. Tim Matska will jump behind the wheel for the second half of the race. Going to be an interesting one here, Lewis, and I must say, given the chaos that we saw in race number 2 yesterday on the start, I'm hoping that we have less issues this time around.
Yeah, we saw a fairly chaotic end to the race. Not sure if they're not. Oh, they are on a lap time. I think they might have just got around to do it, did Inertia. They're in 14th spot, not going to improve anyway. Session's over, so they essentially just missed out. They're going to have to start from 14th. Race 2 yesterday, we saw chaos and carnage. Hopefully, we're not going to see the same thing from the big guns, but it's all about VRS Commander once again on pole position, and this time locking out the front row for the second consecutive time.
It's that time. Let's turn up the most famous song in all of esports. Let's go trackside for race number 4 here in the VRS SCO Sprint Masters and take a look at our starting grid from sunny Barcelona. It is Joshua Rogers, as always, on pole position. A 1:42.77, 1.5 tenths quicker than his teammate Charlie Collins. Once more, it's a VRS lockout of the front row, but this time it's Tumas Tatsila Fokova that qualifies inside of Daniel Passo. Great to see Urano with a very strong qualifying effort. Phil Denez, wonderful from him. He'll be finishing this race, but it'll be Felix Kernbach taking the Zebra to the starting line with Mac Backham qualifying the Lego Technic Esports car. Barton Kroenke, very impressive from that Mercedes, the 81 car inside of Victor Miranda. Great to see the Brazilian Ferrari making its way onto row number 4. Urano and Bieler, German outfits on the edge of the top 10 for the Apex Racing team inside of Core Sim Racing on row number 6. 13th position, that goes to Arnage Competition in the pink BMW. Inertia Euro RC, the Mercedes, completes row 7. Maniti Racing 15th, Apex Racing Team in 16th. Jarl Tien had a flip in race number 1. He'll be hoping for something slightly cleaner here in race number 2. They'll be alongside the Ferrari of Core Sim Racing and Carl E. Janssen. Bieler Racing Team Euronics inside of Valkyrie on the edge of the top 20 with Corentin Funes in 21st and Williams Esports Razor. Watch for the charge from Daniel Lafuente back in 22nd spot. It was a good performance in race 1 for Pash Gergis and the number 18 Mercedes. He's got a lot of work to do, as well as the Pure Sims Esports car back in 24th position. Dylan Scrivens and Ben Deval, they're on row number 18 with Energy Sim Sports RAG and the second RAG Junior car rounding out our 29 car field. This is a very different proposition to what we had in race number 1, Lewis. How are you feeling about this race ahead?
I can't ignore the stat anymore. I can't ignore it. Based on the pace in race 1, based on the fact that I started from second position where the victor has always come from, that 93, I'm thinking they're looking to dominate here at Barcelona and really, almost even in this early stage, put one hand on that trophy because they looked unstoppable last time out. Dane Warren starting the car. I think VRS 93 is going to be taking the victory today.
I tell you what, I'm going to agree with you, but I now feel very, very worried about the proposition for the 93 car because neither of us have a great track record when it comes to commentators' curses. But 60 more minutes here from the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Race weekend number 2 will come to a close. Once more, it's a VRS Coanda lockout on the front row. And for the second time in consecutive weekends, it's Joshua Rogers getting a pole here for this second round. It's a long hold as we enter into the starting zone. 60 kilometers an hour, no checkups this time around until you look further back in the pack. Here we go, already a car onto the grass as we are underway. Kova trying to now cover off the move from behind and looking in front as 4 wide. BS Competition down the middle. Incredible jump here and in towards turn number 1. It's BS Competition looking for third position.
Oh, there's contact and going for a spin as well. That's the Lego Technic car that's been taken out by one of the Urano. There was definite contact behind, running down into turn 1. There is the 92 after doing so well in race 1. They are just sent off and sent packing in the early stages. That's the danger zone we were talking about. There is Kroenke under a lot of pressure right now from Luis Nazar in that number 90 Urano Esports car. It's I'm not sure how to pick through that. We were a little bit too distant, but clearly some drama in the mid-pack.
Ooh, I see Inex Racing has been off the track once more, so not a great visit to Barcelona. 3 wide coming out of turn number 5. I think some hip checking there as the inertia car is in the middle of the sandwich. That's Dylan Shrivens, who's being swarmed at this point in time. An incredible start for him, but already now losing all the positions that he had gained. I think maybe a slowdown penalty to serve for Bobo as we climb the hill in through turn number 9. Incredible start. This time a little bit more hectic than race number 1 as Valkyrie around the outside.
Yeah, we're not expecting to see see a car there. Scriven's given enough room to the Valkyrie car that was absolutely sending it. Now going to fly it down on the brakes, but at this point, if you're going to make it stick, you've got to go all the way around the outside here, and that is not necessarily one move that we see happen. You might see the core sim racing Ferrari as well gaining a position on the number 95. Boban's under a lot of pressure right now. Gained well over the opening stages. They're up to 20th, clearly dodging the carnage on lap 1. 91 leading the way. De Jong behind the wheel. Dane Warren losing out a little bit there. Nearly a second between them at the end of lap 1.
I don't think it was the easiest of starts for Warren, as here comes a move from the Apex Racing car down the inside of Arnage competition. It's Kevin Ellis Jr. getting on past Jimmy Antunes, who had a very impressive run last time at the Hockenheim ring. It's not been so easy for the pink BMW. I think there's a slowdown penalty, almost rear-ended by the Maniti Mercedes behind.
Yes, definite slowdown, so having to lose an awful lot. You're seeing this in the early stages. If you get a slowdown, it's the worst possible thing you can have. And look at that, 3 wide as well ahead as Valkyrie are trying to gain a bit more position. This one on the core sim racing Ferrari and the Williams Esports Razor car. There's going to be a little bit of contact between them and the Ferrari. They have gained the position though. Valkyrie are charging right now.
And Ross McFarlane, we jump on board with Pearson's. A little bit less chaotic for this car. I think maybe as they just get a little bit loose coming onto the runoff area there, they had to maybe check up for some of the stuff in front of them. But here we go up the hill once more. The Ferrari launches itself over that anti-cut curve. Out front, the gap is still 0.8 of a second. I tell you what, Pekka Toivonen, he's been so impressive so far this season. He is the man applying pressure to Dane Warren in front. Take a look as well as Martin Kroenke, who had a difficult race 1, has almost swapped places with Pash Gergis in the 2 Coanda Mercedes. Now Gergis is the one on the outside of the top 10 looking in. We jump on board with Kroenke. He's chasing down Kernbach in that BS competition car.
But where did Pash Gergis start this race?
Oh my word.
23rd, up to 11th. So once again, regardless of the Merc that's not qualified very well for VRS Coanda, they are able to work their way up the order. And again, I know there was a bit of carnage, but absolutely superb to get up to just on the cusp of the top 10. Mitchell de Jong sets the fastest lap of the race, naturally, as he's the one leading right now, but Dane Warren is right on his rear end. Like you say, about 0.8 between them. Toivonen is closing in. Tommy Osgaard actually sets the fastest lap of the race, and that's good for them. At least they've got pace in the car. They've not been damaged too much after being sent down into the gravel trap at T1.
It was I still haven't seen anything on the start just yet, but Dane Warren actually faster last time around. Just an off-track invalidates the lap. Here's the incident down into turn 1. Oh, Energy just caught by, or rather catches the Urano Audi, who's trying to almost come across the track in the braking zone at a 3 wide, braking down into turn 1. And I must say, Tommy Osgaard was being very, very cautious and really caught out through no fault of his own.
Yeah, that one being Arturo Melgar that was sort of diving it through there. It's just one of those things, the 3 of them all kind of coming together. Once again, another position gain from Valkyrie, although, well, that's going to sort that one out. Those 2 have come together, that one being with the Williams Esports Razor car, just cutting back to it, and there is a lot of damage on the rear right-hand side of that Valkyrie car.
Ooh, that is not great, and now Pure Sims will go on through. Can the Arnage competition BMW follow them through? I will speculate that maybe Coanda is just working together on these starts, because whenever a car has struggled in qualifying, they have managed to find a way to charge through the field on the opening lap. And I think Energy Simsport is another car being caught out. They are now at some sort of incident, and the 72 car is 25 seconds adrift at the tail end of the field. 5 minutes in the books. It's 7/10 between the race leaders, as guess what? Mitchell de Jong goes fastest, a 1:41.262. Very marginally quicker than his teammate behind him, but really now the question is, what can that Kova car in third do to challenge the championship leader?
Yeah, it's going to be important for them to try and find a little bit more time, as Valkyrie diving around, just trying to hold the Pearson Esports car at bay, and a little bit concerning. I'll go with that. I wasn't really sure which way to go with that. It's just a little bit of a late move there to cover off. They're not going to be happy about that contact. We only caught the second part of it with what happened with the Williams Esports Razor car, and Ross McFarlane then flashing the lights as well. You've got Arnage behind under pressure from the RHG duo that are now going side by side themselves.
Question, Lewis, are we going to finish with daylight, or by the time we get through the next 53 minutes will the sun have set below the horizon? Okay, so those headlights aren't going to be the only source of light that these drivers are going to be relying on.
No, it shouldn't. Based on yesterday's same time of the race start, so we're just about to tick over 8 o'clock track time, which based on yesterday wasn't enough for it to tick over into tonight. I was concerned about that. It is just going to remain dark. The sun here is not going to set behind the horizon right now. It's just the clouds coming over, making it look a little bit darker than it was. Well, we're talking about communication. Pash definitely was told about that. Wow.
And we saw 4 wide between the BS competition cars further up through the field. There was further 4 wide action. Gerges not into the grass once, but twice. Absolutely sending it down the inside and trying to find whatever positions he can get. That is why he is in 11th spot. And really, I will say, I love that start and I love the determination. But it's risky, and it could cause some bigger issues in the future when you go 5 wide when we get to a track like Circuit Zolder.
Yeah, when it's very, very tight turn, but when track position is king around a circuit like that, maybe making a start like this is going to be absolutely crucial because you need to gain time. He was lucky that the grass was there in the sense as much as he went onto it a couple of times. At least it was there and it wasn't a wall. Would have to back out of it if that wasn't the case. Take a look at it from up above. Look at that. Absolutely no one else around responded. There was 5 wide ahead. He made it 5 wide as well. I mean, risky, bold. Race control might not like it, but for an entertainment point of view, superb.
I'm not sure exactly what to say right now other than wow and amazing start. There was almost contact there between the second of the Apex cars and that Arnage competition BMW as we rejoin the live pictures with almost 10 minutes done in the race. It's been something that they've done on a number of occasions. It's their right to do so. I mean, when you get pole position and lock out the front row, there's nothing stopping you, as far as I'm aware, in the rulebooks from some team communication, and that's what a well-oiled machine will do when it comes to a championship like this. Already, though, as we take a look at this battle with BS Competition and VRS Coanda for 4th and 5th, you can see on the left side of your screen, the Kova BMW is falling off the tail of the race leaders here.
Yeah, they're just not able to respond in pace and in kind to the 2 VRS Commanders ahead. And for Kova right now, this is a little bit concerning. I mean, they did say that the BMW, again, not favoured to this track. They're doing what they can. But Dane Warren, once again, there you go, fastest lap of the race. Again, the top 2 are clearing away whilst everyone else is left asking questions. I wonder if the course in racing car there had a little bit of a slowdown penalty because they went from 10th or 9th or 10th. They're now down in 12th spot with Maniti Racing behind and potentially going through. This is a look at Pekka Toivonen and backwards towards the BS competition car. It's just not quick enough right now. And it's, again, no disrespect to them. They're doing all they can, but Orlando are just in control.
And again, I'm sure it's a very hot summer for the Kova guys. Pekka Toivonen behind the wheel right now, probably sweating. We saw when he took the checkered flag in race number 1, not sure if you remember, Lewis, the first thing he did wasn't celebrate. It was to wipe the sweat off his face. So I'm sure no air conditioning, I think, in some of those houses in Finland. So it must be tough work. And sim racing isn't a physical sport. Well, I can tell you, I've had a heart rate monitor on myself when I was racing. It is very easy to get your heart rate up and to really lose some weight from the sweat that you can put out.
Yeah, I've tried figuring this out. I have no idea why your heart rate increases in sim racing, because you'd think, again, it's like through concentration or whatever, because it's not, yes, we are turning the wheel, we are delivering some sort of physical effort, but it's not the same. It's not as if it's intense exercise. And also, if you were to measure your heart rate in practice rather than in the race, you'll see that the heart rate's wildly different, even though you're doing exactly the same thing, sometimes even in practice, for even longer, and sort of keeping up that sort of resilience for such a long time in practice while you're doing lap after lap after lap after lap. It's not the physical side, it's the mental side, it's the force to concentrate lap after lap after lap after lap whilst you're battling it. You need to be perfect, and your heart responds. Also, just the pressure of being in the race. It's a fantastic feeling. It's just when you're trying to concentrate on doing some of the greatest laps around Barcelona, the only thing you can hear is your heart rate. Oh, it's hard. It's hard work.
Oh, I felt my heart beating on occasions with it. And you can feel it reverberating through your body. It is not the most pleasant of experience, but like you say, the mental strain, you have to be so perfect when it comes to sim racing because, of course, no external factors or anything like that. So it's all about you and your car. That's why we were talking before with Dane Warren in the view of his sim room where his brother is watching on and cheering him on. I can't deal with stuff like that. Side by side, this is on the edge of the top 20. Valkyrie in their BMW causes a bit of a checkup as the Arnage competition. Pink BMW rear ends the Pure Sims car up the hill through turn 9. This is really kicking off.
Yeah, and Tunez going around the outside, obviously disappointed with that slowdown penalty they got. Also trying to dive through the middle as well was there's a bit of contact ahead between Antunes and the Valkyrie car. Kenny Rooson is going to go wide. It was the R8G car that we were riding on board with there through the middle. Ross McFarlane is being dropped down a couple of spots because of just the constant team they had. I'm not actually sure what happened, but now McFarlane's going to try and take advantage of all of it as the Arnage car gets sent off into the gravel trap. It's Pure Sims who are coming through the middle of it. They're going to rejoin, and Valkyrie is sent spinning.
For the second weekend in a row, race 2, and they are parked right in the middle of the track. The core Ferrari somehow scrapes their way on through. That could have been so much worse. Oh, heart-in-mouth moment, I'm sure, for the driver, but no major damage. It will just be heartbreakers down in towards turn 1. There is Thibaut Casabon trying to get on past the Audi for Pure Sims. Really, again, we have to remember, Lewis, this is not for points-paying positions.
Yeah, they're just essentially wasting time and putting on a show, but fantastic show it is, as Ross McFarlane's going to just try and leave it all the way around the outside of T3. Thibaut Casabon has gained that spot. Bobo's also in the mix, and he'll try and fancy his way through, maybe into the rear end. They're going to go almost 3 wide through there. I thought the Urano car was going to try and force it there. Got to go around the outside of here. This was where Ross McFarlane tried making it stick on the Valkyrie car a lap prior, but Scriven's going to lose out. Thibaut Casabon, though, the big gainer, heads to the front of this intense pack.
You could see the cover off from McFarlane as Bobo tried to find a way on past. Nothing doing for now. Gap out front. 4 tenths between first and second. And now Pekka Toivonen finds himself 3 seconds adrift of those group of cars. He is very much in a train behind him. Here's the replay and the aerial look brought to us by ATVO. It was almost 3 wide. I don't think McFarlane had much place to go at that point. But now in through this corner. Oh, he gets a hip check from behind. Just a little bit of a love tap. And I don't know if Valkyrie really would have expected a car to be down the inside. Whoever that was that ran through the gravel, they had much quicker reactions than we've seen on occasion in the past. Able to get on through this very same portion of track and keep everyone with a relatively clean car.
Yeah, it was. It's dicey. That's what you kind of expect. If you're going to go side by side through that section, is picking up a cone is Thibaut Casabon, by the way, on the front end of that Porsche. You're racing hard. You're giving it everything. I mean, you're going to see some fair kinds. This is Sedgwick. Whoa, it was close in the NX car. That was about as tight as you like. Although I didn't have to differentiate too much online. I think it was the Lego Technic car that was coming through behind that had to adjust most was Tommy Oscar.
Yeah, Tommy's really been mixed up in all of the commotion so far, and I'm sure that the Lego Technic car won't be too thrilled with what happened on the start, but just fighting past at this point in time. Reminder, 15th on up, they score points, and right now we are focusing on guys scrapping out very hard over effectively just honor and airtime, if you will. Back to the front, you can see BS Competition very much looking forward to try and get past Kova, but Martin Kroenke is trying to hunt them down. It's not been easy for Kroenke in the transition from open wheel to GT cars. Always a strong competitor, though, no matter what you put him in, and it's great to see him back at the front in a major GT championship, Lewis.
Yeah, it really is doing a fantastic job right now. Obviously, they didn't go so strong in race 1. There was a little bit of struggles in the 81. We saw the reverse where the 18 was doing well. The 81 was struggling its way up the order. Now we're seeing that flipped around, and the 81 is answering the call for VRS SCO to try and lock out the podium. I mean, I'm not going to necessarily rule it out. We're 15 minutes into the race, and they are on the cusp of moving past BS Competition and Co. Whilst we've got a Porsche 1-2, the next Porsche is down in 16th spot. So a large gap, a large contingent. Energy Simsport, let's give them a shout out in that Ferrari. They are doing fantastic right now.
Yeah, I think it's the first time we've really had a Ferrari on merit be up there in the top 10. It's not been easy by any means for the prancing horse, the 5 representatives that they've got, but great to see the Brazilians in the Energy Sim Sport car really doing a strong job. I will say on Cronky's record, of course, 2016 through 2018, he was your iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series winner. 3 consecutive back-to-back World Championships, and who can forget in 2017 the clean sweep that he had to win every single race. He then did follow that up in 2019. He is a world champion in the GT cars. It just happened to be in the GTE machine, sharing it with Joshua Rogers, guess who, and Ricardo Castro-Ledo. So very strong heritage, not just in open wheelers, but in GTs as well, and of course competing in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. We are only about 8 minutes away from the pit stop window as we jump on board with the Energy Ferrari, looking in the rear view mirrors, because that is the Apex Racing Team 99 right behind Zach Campbell behind the wheel there. It was a difficult end to the race for Campbell. He is looking to try and make up some positions here before he hands it on over to Jamie Flew.
How hard do you push though? Pre-pit stop, how hard do you push to try and gain spots and try and force your way through? And is it worth the risk? Is it worth the track position right now, or do you kind of want to just hold position, just let things unfold, and then just maybe come in a little bit earlier, maybe come in a little bit later in the pit stop sequence, and see how that one's going to work out from using strategy to progress rather than on-track action?
Oh, for the race lead, look at the gap. 1 car length between the 91 and the 93. Here comes Dane Warren trying to get on past Mitchell de Jong as we climb up the hill in through turn 3 and under the bridge. Let's see if we go side by side for the race lead.
Now this is kind of important. I'm not saying anything between them, but Dane Warren, Mitchell de Jong, fantastic drivers. Charlie Collins, Josh Rogers, fantastic drivers. Those two are going to be going toe-to-toe a little bit later on if this battle continues. And for Dane Warren, he'll be wanting to hand over the car to Charlie Collins in the lead of the race. He'll want to do it so that Charlie Collins will be on the defence, will be on the keeping your eyes on the rear view rather towards Josh Rogers. Consider the pace between de Jong and Warren in the previous race, how big a gap that Warren was able to pull out. So he needs to respond in car and try and get ahead and try and break that slipstream even before the car is handed over.
It is a late night in Australia, and you can see Warren's brother has departed the sim room. I wonder if maybe just now cheering on with the rest of the family in through the final sector. It is nothing between your 2 race leaders, and I would have a feeling coming out of the final corner, Lewis, we're going to see the run into turn 1. We may see the move as well.
Depends on, are we going to see some team orders? Are we going to see anything? Surely we're going to see some attempt here. Surely we're going to see Dane Warren trying it. There's not been team orders from them thus far in the championship. Out of the final corner, looked like an ever so slightly cleaner run from Mitchell de Jong. It was just a little bit too wide from Dane Warren on that run down to turn 1 was enormous front straight.
Oh, I thought he was going to tuck into line, but no, pokes his nose to the inside. Down he goes. It's Dane Warren to the pointy end of things. Once more, we see a Coanda car getting loose through turn 1, but able to hold on to it. It is now the 93, the championship leader, looking for a 3rd consecutive victory.
Now the heart will be racing. That'll be a good save. It's the second time, like you say, we've seen a VRS Coanda attempt that one. The previous race, it was the driver he just overtook down into turn 1, going down, braking hard, touching the curve a little bit on the inside and going for a spin. That was de Jong in race 1. This time it was very, very nearly Warren. That was a proper sender, good move. But de Jong's not been gapped at all. Naturally, I get the feeling we're going to see this battle continue. And this could be good for Kova, although Kova are a long way back already, 4 seconds down the road. So it could be just this battle for a little bit whilst they've not got too much pressure.
And with the track conditions being 26 degrees Celsius on the track, I mean, it's not going to be like the tires are in as much agony as we saw in that race number 1. So tire conservation isn't necessarily going to be so important. Take a look at de Jong in the Coanda team house recently. I say recently now. The time has really flown up here for RaceSpotTV with the number of things that we've had going on. Late in 2020, de Jong made the trip over the pond to Germany to join up with the Coanda team house, and now you can see with the distinct purple carpets, as Lewis pointed out, there's only one place that could be. I don't think there's going to be a move forthcoming for de Jong this time around. Just a little bit too far behind, a little bit too wide, and I'd suspect these guys don't want to be fighting too hard back and forth and open the door for Kova, and indeed you can see lifting off as we enter into the braking zone. Here though is their teammate Martin Kroenke to the inside of Felix Quirnbach. Lost to the late breakers. The Mercedes gets up into 4th position.
Yeah, that looked like a pretty clean move, so we might well see the VRS SCO and the SimSport 1, 2, 3. This time, though, with the Mercedes, I was more expecting it in the previous race when it was the Porsche trio that were at the front, but then obviously we saw the drama, the chaos that fell us towards the end of the race, and that wasn't what we got. Cobra as well, getting onto the podium. They've finished first, second and third in the first 3 races of the season. Are we going to see them continue that trend and finish 4th in the 4th race? Well, I mean, with the pace that Kroenke's got right now, I would not rule that one out.
I wouldn't either, and I would just like to say, I've been watching on in the session. We see, of course, the Biela Racing team, number 46, they're in 9th position. Team owner, Frank Biela, he was in the iRacing session watching along, so great to see, the top levels watching, and I also see the BS competition guys in the YouTube chat, so everyone is watching this 4th race in the VRS SCO Sprint Masters. Crazy to think that with back-to-back-to-back race weekends to kick things off, Lewis, we are almost a full third through the season already.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be halfway this time in a week. When we go to Zolder, when we finish up racing there, we're already half through the season. Then we'll take that break, as you said. We've got plenty of racing to come in that gap, of course, the 24 hours of Spa to tide us over, and plenty of prize money on the table. And then we return and we'll do another 3-week back-to-back run-in for the final of the championship. What it means is that there's no way, there's very, very little time, rather, to respond to issues, to errors, to anything like that. You have that issue, you think, oh, the car's not feeling great around here. But we've got a race in a week's time, and also, by the way, we've got all these other races and stuff. I mean, look at how many things that VRS Coanda do. If there's an issue with the car, they just don't really have the time to respond to it. And so from that point of view, they'll kind of be thinking, look, if we can get to the halfway point of the season in a good spot, then at least we have a break, we have time to fix the errors and then come back stronger for the final 3.
And of course, I mean, it's not just the likes of Coanda. Kova slightly wide. I wonder if there was a bit of a barge there to get Kroenke up into 3rd position. Here comes Quirnbach to slide his way up into 4th. Toivonen has to give room, and now down to 5th. The slide will start, and I wonder if, as we see Apex Racing Team and the Energy SimSport car side by side heading into turn 9. Wonderful opportunistic pass from Zach Campbell to slide on through there. He's now going to challenge Lewis Najner in front of him.
Yeah, this could be brilliant stuff. Around the outside of this corner, I've seen it a few times. We saw it quite a bit in the GT4s and GT3s. We've yet to see it work out. You can stick all the way around the outside at T10. It does give you the inside all the way home, but no way to make that one stick from Zach Campbell at present. Behind this, Borgert and Patrick Heinrich are quite close to going side by side, but the Biela Racing car not able to do anything. I'm pretty sure I just caught it having a look back, and I'm sure we will take a quick look on the replay as well. I'm not sure that move was fully legit from the 81. It was a proper send down the inside into turn 5 to gather that position on Kova. Kova won't be happy with that one bit.
Now I'm taking a look at it myself as you see, the second VRS Coanda Mercedes looks to the outside of the Biela car. They had a monster of a start to kick things off, and now side by side is Apex Racing, and I believe that's Kevin Ellis Jr. trying to take advantage. The core Mercedes will slip it down the inside. All sorts of carnage on the outside of the top 10. Team Maniti and Inertia Euro RC, a train of Mercedes now, just outside the top 10. I will say, I watched the replay back just like you did. It was good from Kroenke to at least look to the inside, but misses the apex of the corner, slightly loose through the crucial part. And well, I like you said, barging Kova slightly wide, and Kova then losing that additional position. Only, though, 15 seconds to go, Lewis, until guess what? The pit stop window will open.
Absolutely, and it could be crucial in this one because we've got these big battle packs. Let's take a look at this. This is what we were talking about. So there's the it's great until that point. I mean, to be honest, it's not like that heinous of a crime. It's not that bad. And I'm not going to say it deserves a penalty because I don't think it does. It was just, you'd be like, okay, the next time we go side by side, I'm not going to be as nice to you. Definitely not a penalty in my book, but it's just a little bit too much.
Yeah, and I mean, you could see not even really controlled on the entry to the corner for Martin Kroenke, just a little bit sideways, a little bit loose, and unfortunately Toivonen concedes the position. There you see the Biela Racing, the second of the Biela Racing cars getting on past the Williams Esports Razor car. This is now for points paying positions. That's a huge crash. It's going to block the pit entry. The core Ferrari is going to send the Biela racing car end over end. And well, you talked about it being a difficult pit road. Pure Sims is going to have to work their way through carnage.
Wow, yeah, no, as soon as that car came down pit lane, you could tell it was too quick. It just came in way too fast. And wow, I feel so bad for the core sim racing car that followed it in. Absolutely no. Like, there's no way they could respond to that. Anyone coming in behind that, you'll have their teammates saying that pit lane's blocked, don't come in. Do not come into the pit lane. They'll be quite quick on it. Yeah, just overdone. It's a hard pit lane entry. It really is here at Barcelona, especially with that fast turning. It's not as hard from the chicane because you've got us already going quite slow into it. Whereas when you're committed through so much speed through the penultimate corner, yeah, that's tears.
Heartbreak. What else can you say? That is looking like significant damage. Right on board with Carly Jensen. He just slides. Nothing he could do. He didn't even get any a visual on that car until it was well too late, and I would suspect some serious steering damage to both of those cars. One at the front, one at the rear. Here we go, though. Pit window is open. The question is, who blinks first from the race lead?
Yeah, Dane Warren currently leading the race, but has not been able to gap Mitchell de Jong at all. Neither of these two going to depart for pit lane. It is absolutely a two-horse race for this win. They are 6 seconds clear of their sister team in that Merc, the 81. Is this going to be a move, though, for Mitchell de Jong to retake the lead before he hands it over to his teammate Josh Rogers? Charlie Collins will be watching on and thinking, oh, I've got to do the work now, with the 91 once again heads to the front of the race.
And this time a little bit more controlled from the American, who slots himself back up to the front of the field. You can see as we work our way to the halfway point of the pit window, still waiting for a number of cars. Whereas in race 1, we saw basically half the field, more than half the field, come down at the very first time of asking. This time, drivers are staying out there just that little bit longer. 17 cars yet to come down onto pit road.
Dane Warren did get in the car quite late, remember, because Charlie Collins did stay out until not the final lap of the pit window, but it was the second last, the penultimate lap of the pit window sequence. Then came in, missed the box ever so slightly, and then handed over to Dane Warren. They were able to gain quite a bit, though, from that pit lane. So I wonder if they're going to try the same kind of thing. Of course, the number 91 will be keeping their eye on that, but it is Coanda versus Coanda, and this is a battle without team orders. They are going to go toe-to-toe. They are going to fight this one out properly because, in a sense, whilst the 93 has been essentially in control of the championship, has taken 2 race wins in the second spot, the championship's not over yet. We're not picking favourites right now, and so the 91 is still trying to reignite their championship charge, and so why would you have team orders right now?
And I mean, it just takes one race to turn things around when you have this sort of a point system. Still, no one down onto the lane, and Warren just washes out very slightly with the dirty air. I will say, it's looking like we've got a slobber knocker of a fight coming up in the second half of this race now. Joshua Rogers versus Charlie Collins, as we see the energy car down onto the pit road. Great to see that Ferrari up there in the top 10, now working his way down to get that driver swap done. Who's going to throw the first strike here? I would have to wonder, because if I'm the car behind, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm following my teammate in, given what we've just seen, Lewis.
Yes, sorry, just a call to... This is something that we missed a little bit earlier. I'm not 100% sure why, but I did see it pop up on the pit graphic there. Kova have been into the pit lane twice. I wonder if they've sped in pit lane or something in that vein, but they have already apparently... you might see it just pop up here. They're down in 27th spot. There you go, pit stops, 2. What has happened to one of our championship rivals?
This is big. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can take a look as we watch Tatala trying to build up his speed. And, well, he is now almost in danger of going a lap down. I see him coming down into the pits. I don't necessarily think there was anything wrong in terms of his entry there. I am very, very confused. Let's see if we can get the update from the teammates. Valtteri Alander has been active in our Twitch chat, and just pointing at our Twitch chat, I would like to just steal a line from the King of Chins, Joshua Chin, who was just saying it's not just pain, but it's Spain for some of these drivers here. Just a little bit of puns there. Oh, and indeed, confirmation, speeding in pit road. So that is what happened there. So for the second place car coming into this race weekend, that is going to be a very difficult thing to bounce back from. And well, if the 93 car can just hold station as they both come down onto pit road, the 91 and the 93, things will be looking very promisingly for Warren and Collins.
That is insanely costly. Absolutely insanely costly. That is a shame for them. Either way, like you say, VRS SCO and SimSport into the pit lane, the 91 and the 93. Josh Rogers going to get behind the wheel from Mitchell de Jong. Charlie Collins will be taking over from Dane Warren, and we'll see that battle, I'm absolutely sure, continue post-pit stop. But are they going to take gambles? Are they going to try something interesting on tyres? Are they going to try something different? Are we going to see 4 tyres? Are we going to see no tyres? Well, we'll have to wait and see when they get released.
This is really, really fascinating. As right side, you see the pit stops. They are going to exit in the order they came in, so nothing doing there. Apex, Bila, and Apex, the top 3 who are yet to come down onto pit road. You still have Inertia, Williams, Urano, the Lego Technic car, the Inex car, and the Energy, the second of the Energy Ferraris, yet to come down. And there you can see the final pit stops. As you can see, there's some action as well coming down into turn 1. It's Coanda and Core, Mercedes versus Mercedes. Coanda gets it done with the drag. Here though is that battle between BS Competition and the number 81 car, Lewis.
Yeah, BS Competition got ahead again through the pit stop sequence of the 81 VRS Commander. We were talking about it being a VRS Commander SimSport podium lockout. Well, they're going to try and put an end to that BS Competition. They had the podium last round out in the second race, and they're trying to do the same thing here, gone around the outside at turn 4. They've got the inside for turn 5 now. That Merc is on the attack, but is it going to be able to hold them at bay? It's tight stuff between them. There's a little bit of contact as they run off the corner, as they come together. Now they'll start rising up the hill. It's advantage BMW.
But slightly wide. Does it open the door for the over-under? Not just yet, but the run onto this back straightaway will be crucial. And of course, with that mistake from the Kova boys, it's going to be now. This is the battle for the podium. It brings in the likes of Urano. It even brings in the Ferrari from the Energy SimSport team. As with 2 minutes left to go, we will see your race leaders in the next time around.
Also, it doesn't actually necessarily rule out the 18 VRS Commander SimSport car that's not even that far behind. It's not quite a part of this battle, but you'll just see it coming through the top of the shot there. It's not necessarily completely out of it, so we'll have to wait and see if they can fight their way as to a part of this battle. You know they're going to fight it out as hard as they can. BS Competition, though, to the point in this battle. Would be great to see a Ferrari on the podium, though, wouldn't it? What an underdog story that would be.
It would be. I mean, and maybe just would intensify the discussions around BOP. Let's get some more BOP on that Ferrari. Clearly, the prancing horse is just too strong, given what we've seen. I will say, given the way that each of the manufacturers really has been able to be pretty quick, other than the Ferrari, if we're being honest, at various points in time, Race Control has done a very good job to manage the balance of performance. All of the cars have gotten a power cut, so they're not running at 100% capacity. Additional fuel tank cuts potentially. You've also got the addition of, it's not enough fuel tank cuts, I meant just the added weight that the organizers have put on some of the cars can affect, especially in the low-speed corners, how the car handles. 60 seconds to go. Here we go. Final pit stop. It's Apex Racing Team leading us down onto pit road.
I wasn't convinced there that was going to get stopped. I genuinely was a little bit concerned there from Zach Campbell. Maybe a little bit too high. Maybe I'm just throwing it back to the other Bila car that came in earlier and just gave us that little bit of a fright. Coming down to pit lane, they passed the Valkyrie car that's out of the race, retiring after that incident in the penultimate corner. All of them switching. Final time for them to be in the pit lane, so everyone is in. The race lead will return the way. Oh, Lego Technic. Oh no, they're not staying out there in pit lane. They're just further down the pit lane. Never mind, we won't panic about that. It is going to be VRS Commander 1 and 2 again. And look at that from Josh Rogers, pulling away.
And I'm watching for the lap times this time around because I am curious to see what they're looking like. It's a 41.142 for Rogers, for Collins a 1.74. There's not much to separate them, but right now it's 0.7 of a second on track. I think the young Welshman has a lot of work to do. There's almost a fight off of pit road. Watch for this down into turn number 1.
Yeah, this is going to be tight as well with the rejoin onto the racetrack. The Energy SimSport Ferrari going around the outside. It's going to be tight with the Bila car. There's almost going to be contact onto the sausage curb. That is just judged to perfection. That was about as tight as you could get it for Victor Miranda. Just trying to hold at bay. Sven Haas fresh out of the pit lane. You've got the Urano car as well, keeping the Merc at bay ahead of this for VRS Commander. Chop and change. Look at the gap at the top two. Have 8 seconds over BS Competition.
Oh no. as something happened to Inex Racing and Jarl Tien for the second race in a row. I have a feeling it is potentially with the core sim racing car of Yannick Kiru, because I see both of them have been off the track very recently, and well, it's been a difficult run for Inex so far in their Ferrari. It continues here then in Spain as we watch this. This is not for 12th and 2nd as it will show on those pit boards that sit there on the top portion of the car. It's wonderful to have just a little bit of an extra way to watch. Here is the replay, and again, it's a side-by-side battle from a car coming off a pit road, and well, Jarl Tien just loses the rear end by himself. The Vendaval Audi has to take avoiding action there.
Yeah, fully on Jarl, just a little bit too hot down into turn one. A driver of intense experience, has been known in sim racing for a long time, taking part in the likes of LFS. So some drivers that may have raced back there in the day might know him more as Arox or whatever he races under or raced under back then. A very, very fast competitor with a wealth of experience, and they're just there pushing it maybe a little bit too hard. Who are we going to see on the podium though? It's BS competition. We've got Apex Racing Team, we've got the Urano car as well, we've got plenty of involved in the mix. Are we going to see a VRS SCO 1, 2, 3? I'm not so sure. I couldn't even tell you what manufacturer we're going to see on the podium right now.
I'm going to put my neck out there before I ask you for a prediction. I think Denez can hold on to this. I think he's taken tires this time around, Lewis, and we saw the staunch defense last time in race number 2. I think we'll see similar things from the American this time around.
Apex. I'm going for Jamie Fluke. I think that car's getting onto the podium right now. It's looking fast, it's looking competitive. I get that Denez is looking really, really good right now, and I know that the straight line speed of the BMW will be, you know, good to keep the Lambo at bay. That's not particularly pokey on the 1 kilometre straight that we have, but I just get a vibe about this. We heard from Jamie Fluke, who gave us a little bit of a guide around the track at the start with our VRS track walk. I just think that it's going to be enough. I think there will be an opportunity to get by.
Still 22 minutes and a long, long way to go. Let's see how things will cycle out. Last time around, Charlie Collins was, I say quicker, but it's that hundredths, thousandths of a seconds quicker than his teammate Rogers. Those two really are going back and forth on the lap time. It's going to be a Herculean effort, I would assume, for Charlie Collins to try and take victory here, because trying to unseat a two-time world champion is no small task, but Charlie Collins is up for the challenge. As I say that new fastest lap, it goes to Joshua Rogers. Collins went faster, but just like we saw with Warren during his stints, Lewis, off tracks mean that is not a valid lap time.
Yeah, but it's still faster, so you'll take the incident point, fair enough, whatever. As long as you don't breach the limit, you're not going to pay too much of a mind to it. So right now, they're just trying to close in, and if you're going to get an instant point, you use them as a currency. You spend them when you're kind of pushing to the very limit, just making sure not to go and get yourself a slow down penalty. Just going to say as well, I really do like Jamie Fluke's ball. I love those the track maps and whatever that's just on that. Really, really nice.
I will say, if you want to learn more about Jamie Fluke, it's been a while since we've had... Oh, that's a send from the Bila Lamborghini. Wonderfully done. The Energy Ferrari just says, not going to fight you too hard. He's going to fight the second of the Lamborghinis. That is the Apex Racing car of Maxime Brienne. Not going to get the position done there. I will say, again, if you want to learn more about Jamie Fluke, one of the nicest guys in all of sim racing, it's been a long while since we've done a RaceSpotTV Talking Tense episode, but you can head to Spotify or our YouTube to learn a little bit more about the man himself. Now, I believe full-time in sim racing, so very committed to the task at hand. I did say it was going to be a slobber knocker of a battle out front. Right now, it's not wheel to wheel. It is just in terms of pure lap times. And really, I have to say, it is impressive for Charlie Collins to be matching his very well-renowned teammate, not just here in a GT3 car, across of everything that Joshua Rogers races.
Now, could you imagine how much of a boost that would be to your confidence if you can go toe-to-toe with arguably one of, if not the fastest driver in all of sim racing and beat them? That would be an enormous confidence boost for Charlie Collins. I mean, yes, sure, they've beaten them in the previous 3 races of the championship, but it's not the same as actually doing it toe-to-toe on racetrack and doing it yourself. And right now, that is exactly what Charlie Collins could do. The gap being around about 6-7 tenths of a second in the slipstream range, but the closer it gets, the more that slipstream's going to help, and the easier it will be to stay on the rear end of Rogers. And I wouldn't necessarily rule out a move, but you've got to do the hard work. It's certainly not going to be an easy run-in for Charlie Collins, and Rogers going to be hungry for that victory.
And I mean, by no means is Joshua Rogers old at 21 years old, but Charlie Collins, very, very young, just 16 years of age. He has got almost unlimited potential, I would have to think, within sim racing, and let's see how he continues to develop with the Coanda guys. I will say, I'm loving the action right now. Phil Denez is not really having too much of a challenge from Jamie Fluke. I'm looking more at Daniel Pastor, who's closing on the number 99 car. He may look to try and get on past.
Yeah, Pastor's doing really good right now, but like I say, I'm still feeling that there's enough to keep the Lamborghini that we're presently on board with at bay. But even then, I'm going to go one position back from you when it comes to concern, because Jeremy Bootsloop, who did a great job in the early stages of the previous race to gain some decent progress, and yes, whilst we've seen how VRS Coanda do start a race, and fair enough, but considering the straight line speed of that Merc, I'm not going to... Again, not going to rule that one out from being in podium contention. They'll be a little bit annoyed they drop down to 6th spot after the pit lane sequence and whatnot. They are still going to be fast if they know they can get onto the podium, because they've already been running around in 3rd quite a bit this race, so they know how to get it done.
For a moment, Fluke took a look to the inside through turn 1, but nothing doing, at least for the time being, as we look on board with Daniel Pastor once more. Oh, you can just see the amount of force he puts under the brakes, almost forces himself back in the seat. We said maybe not the most physical of sports sim racing, but I think you get a good look here. When you get a direct drive wheel, all the force that it can put out, you get a load cell pedal where you can stomp on it. Often, if you get something like the Hoisting Belt Sim Racing Ultimates, you get the full range of motion that these guys have in the real world. You don't have the helping hand as well of the G-forces of the car, so it's a slightly different sort of a thing. Here onto the back straightaway, let's see if these guys are going to scrap it out.
Ben Hartz as well, trying to apply pressure to Jerry Bootsloop directly behind this. These three just trying to pull away from that grouping in the rear. And right now, once again, the straight line speed of the BS competition BMW is just enough to keep Jamie Fluke at bay. Right now, Daniel Pastor, like you say, is close enough. They're 1.3 seconds clear of Jeremy Bootsloop, but Bootsloop's got Harter there. He's got Victor Miranda there as well, so a lot of weight being applied to his shoulders. Gap for the lead, half a second. It is coming down.
It's coming down, and I think for Dakota Fripp in the Vendaval Audi, he is off the track and trying to get himself back up to speed. Here we go, down into turn 1. Don't think anyone's close enough. If anything, it's the Coanda car behind that's defending from Bila Racing Team, and indeed the 46 is trying to get on past. I think the 81 car of Jeremy Bootsloop has been relegated down a position, now looking to try and defend from Victor Miranda in the Energy Sim Sport Ferrari. Entering the final quarter of the race, it is still only half a second out front, and I tell you what, Charlie Collins is really putting the pressure on his teammate now.
Yeah, Bila won't have been happy with the pit lane sequence they just had, but alas, they have got the pace. They pitted a little bit later than everyone else. It's 4 laps later than Daniel Pastor ahead, same lap as Jamie Fluke. And they have the potential to rise up another position drop from the 81, as they are also passed by the Energy Sim Sports car. So Victor Miranda making the move. Our focus there was on the top 2 that are leading the race. It's now 0.3 of a second. That battle is absolutely on going into the final 15 minutes of the race. Is it going to be the 3rd consecutive win for the 93, or is it going to be the team that we were mostly focused on at the start of the season before a lap was even run? That number 91, who is going to be taking the top on this? Definitely between the two, unless something dramatic, very dramatic, would have to happen for them to lose 10 seconds to the chasing pack.
Never say never, Lewis. We've seen Coanda teammates come together before, and as we see Bila kicking up some gravel on the exit of turn number 12, the gap continues to come down. I would have to think that the main thing that the team manager Philip Stam is saying to the rest of his team is calm down, get yourself to the end. You are 11 seconds clear of 3rd place BS competition. There can be no room for mistakes at this point in time. The 81 car looking in his rearview mirrors, because I think Maxime Brienne is eyeing up the 81 car once more. We look at that battle through turn 1. The Mercedes is just not looking comfortable right now, despite the fact, Lewis, track temperature continues to drop.
Yeah, 26 degrees at the moment, so we're quite a bit lower than in the previous session, which, I mean, we're speaking yesterday with someone about how this changes, because you're running effectively the same setup in a sense to, I mean, I'm sure there might be some slight differences when it comes to tyre pressures and whatnot that you might make a difference on, as the LEGO Technic Esports once again continuing to make progress. They're just on the cusp of the points after being shot off at turn 1. That would be a one hell of a recovery for them. It shows the pace they've got. But yeah, you don't make too much of a difference, which means that yes, the conditions aren't going to make an enormous amount of difference, but they will make a difference. They do change the balance of the car ever so slightly. This works for some cars, works for some drivers, works for some teams, works for some setups.
That's an interesting view from Maxime Brienne.
Great camera angle, mate.
I guess we get to see the hands at work and I guess how smooth some of these guys are. You talked about setup differences. I would postulate, and of course I'm not a top-level driver, but tire pressures aren't necessarily going to be something that changes. Maybe just a little bit less wing, throw on some more camber to account for some reduced tire wear. Look how much they cut on that inside of the penultimate corner. Maybe that's where some of the slowdowns have been coming that we've seen on occasion. Here we go though. Brienne is rocking and rolling. You can see he is grooving and ready for this pass.
What is he doing with his neck? I mean, I've seen one of my teammates, he ducks down behind the wheel as if it's in karting, trying to reduce the slipstream. That is not even fought by the 81, so pretty easy move. I mean, considering it's a Lamborghini in a straight line, you would suspect there'd be more pace in the 81, but they're I was going to say struggling. There is a bit of damage on the front end of the Mercedes there, but I don't think it's going to cost that much straight line speed. But either they're lifting out, which would be a very bizarre thing to be doing at this point of the race, or they are genuinely struggling for straight line speed. So, you know, pick and choose what you want to say in that. I don't have any data to correlate with it, but I'd have to say that they are struggling to punch their way through at the end of that 1 kilometre straight.
My theory is there's damage to the 81 car. You can kind of see the front end is dipping, just not factory fresh, if we're going to call it that way. The question I now have is, what's Brienne listening to? Is it some Eurobeat, some Sandstorm, or maybe something else? Maybe we'll get to talk to the Apex Racing team at the conclusion of this. You can still kind of see the damage on Martin Kroenke's car as his teammate throws it down the inside. There's the super slow-mo. Yeah, and I think Kroenke in the live pictures might get passed by Williams Esports Razor around the outside of turn number 12. That's a bold place. We've seen the Williams car get forced off onto the gravel. No position gain just for now.
Yeah, that was tight between them. It's a bit of a shame there for the 81, but yeah, that damage on the front end is definitely costing them. And regardless of them holding it on there, I'd be absolutely sure that the Williams car is going to pass them now, because the straight line speed is going to affect them. The core car seems to have a bit of damage on them themselves. Bit of slipstream dished out between the teammates. By the way, the number 18, 23rd to 9th now, so fantastic effort from them. Trying to keep the Porsche at bay as the 81. Not a chance.
It's 14 positions gained for David Williams in the 18, 12 for Williams Esports and Ate Koponen. So, I mean, hard charges. I mean, the 18 made most of its positions up on the initial start, if you recall, the rocket that Pash Gergis got. Here comes the move from Core, covered off for now. Indeed, it's inertia in the rear view mirror that has even more damage to the front clip of that car. So clearly, we talked about anti-cut curves being something to avoid. For whatever reason, maybe just the front end nature of the Mercedes, it's proving to be a very different kind of a thing. Left side of the screen, it is saying that VRS Coanda... Yeah, that's not right. Coanda is not up 17 positions. That is for sure. Charlie Collins and his teammate Dane Warren qualified that car in second. For a moment, I was like, where did Energy Simsport come from? They've always been in the top 10.
Yeah, no, that was the one that confused me. I was like, hang on, no, wait. I'm pretty sure they qualified in 8th spot, so they're running around in 7th. So they've done quite well, but regardless, yeah, not up quite that many. LEGO Technic Esports, by the way, they've got up inside the points-paying positions. They are in 15th. I think that might be as good as it gets unless someone else falls off in the final 10 minutes of the race, but they've done all they can to recover up inside the points-paying positions. Onto the start-finish straight once again. They'll probably have around about 6 laps to go, and that is 6 laps for the 89 to hold on. They've been doing it with ease for now. They've not really had to fight too hard. Realistically, as Field and Eds, with Jamie Fluke in the background as well, keeping Daniel Pazder at bay, but each lap that ticks off is the intersection. Jamie Fluke, you say he's a nice guy, you know, but I don't think he's going to sit there waiting. If there's an opportunity, it's going to be grabbed. A ruthless racer, we all are.
I do wonder if maybe this is a similar sort of a situation as to what Altus were dealing with at the conclusion of race 2 last time, where they were close to the incident limit and did not want to risk a penalty, a time penalty that would drop them down the order. And we have seen, I mean, more from the Coanda cars, if we're being honest, the track limits being tested, getting some faster lap times, but it is going to be, I think, something that we don't get that view on, and we'll maybe have to just try and clarify post-race. Gap out front. Not sure if you've been following, Lewis. It is still 0.3 of a second. It is heating up between the teammates.
Yeah, Collins has been sat on the rear end of Josh Rogers. I don't know if you have. I've kept that very much on my other screen. I am very much keeping an eye on it. They're close. They're running onto the start-finish straight very, very close. But it does seem that Josh Rogers is just having the better run through the final corner. It's just giving enough of a gap that they're not being pulled back into on that run into turn 1. You can just see it there. There's quite a sizable gap. Now, whilst the slipstream's good, whilst it's strong, the better run, the better launch, it's just not enough for Collins to do anything about it down into turn 1. It either needs to be an enormous send, fastest lap of the race anyway, or it needs to be something in the inner portion of the lap.
41.085. That is rapid. And to really set the picture right now, Lewis, these guys are very closely matched on time. The rest of the field is 5/6 off the pace. As look at this, side by side, pain continues for the VRS Coanda Mercedes as Core slips it down the inside. Watch for inertia to follow them through. You've got Maniti behind them as well. Not being the easiest of race number 2s for the Mercedes here today.
Yeah, it's look, they seem to be doing well a bit early, but it seems they might be a bit more susceptible to damage, whether that's from car-to-car contact or whether that's from abusing of track infrastructure, such as the sausage curbs down at turn 7, or particularly the one out of the final corner, or penultimate corner between Maniti down the inside there of inertia. That was a bit of a lunge from Tim Matska, trying to get by, but not quite able to do it. This is all in the points. This is extra points moving up the position. It's 1 for each position right now for them down in the pack, and a lot of damage for everyone else. I'm pretty sure that Maniti racing car that's a little bit less damaged might be a little bit faster than the other Mercs in this battle.
You will notice there is no Urano car in the top 10 anymore. As a strong qualifying, both of their cars working into the top 10. Nicholas Laubish has had just a little bit of an issue. Excuse me, no, the Urano HKM car is right there. Sorry, I was looking at the other 2 Urano cars. Both Audis are down out of the top 10, I must say. Sorry, Daniel Pastor, you're doing a much better job than your teammates have been able to do so far in this race. We saw contact with one of them. Pastor has been very impressive here today.
Well, I think the other ones have been involved in incidents, of course. One of them being Melga, who was involved in that incident between themselves and the Lego Technic car down at turn 1. Bobo was involved in goodness knows what after that as well, and the other one. So they've been involved in their fair amount of chaos here at Barcelona, as have quite a few teams. Once again, 0.3 of a second separating our 2 race leaders as a battle to see who's going to be the next car on the podium rages on.
I think my money's looking pretty good right now. I think Dinez
I'm a bit disappointed, mate. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I just wonder, we talked about setups and that compromise between, the slower speed corners and maintaining your speed down the 1 kilometer, main straightaway. That BMW just looks like it's got enough of a grunt that even though those Lamborghinis are very strong through the slower speed corners in comparison to that BMW, it's just not enough at this point in time. 5 minutes left on the clock. It is coming down to the wire, not just for the podium, but for first and second as well.
Yeah, they'll have 3 laps, which is 3 attempts basically every corner that comes up to try and make something stick for BS competition. Like you say, a lot of this comes down to just the straight line speed. The exit from the corners is just really, really nice. It's punching a nice big hole. Yes, sure, it's punching a nice big hole for everyone else, but it's got the power and the grunt to deal with it. I get the vibe that this time the run between Collins looked a little bit better this time between Collins and Rogers, but still just not enough. Those 2 in the same cars. Collins surely isn't trying to leave this until the last moment. Surely this isn't a tactical thing. They are racing as hard as they can. It's just the gap is not closing down enough. They're not quite close enough to make that move.
Well, The lap times last time, Lewis, a 1:41.302 for Rogers, a 3:04 for Collins. I mean, how much closer can you get than 2000? And it is neck and neck right now. There is 4 minutes left. I don't think Collins is trying to leave this late. They are just fighting tooth and nail with everything that they've got. And a reminder as well, with the speeding penalty that Kova, self-inflicted on themselves. They're down in 22nd. No points in race number 2. The championship is swinging in the favor of the 93 car.
Yeah, enormously. If that race win in race 1 wasn't enough, this is doing it a very, very large solid. Even if they finish second here, they are scoring brilliantly in comparison, and maybe their focus in the championship heads to more of the focus of 91, who they are keeping under pressure, and they have kept honest throughout the season so far. The 91 hasn't had the best track record so far in the season, and it's the 93 that's looking almost unstoppable. It is only 2 rounds into the season, though. We've still got 8 races after this, over 4 rounds, following that same format, and like we're saying, no one has anywhere to hide right now.
Some more cones being kicked up there. First, I think, by the BS Competition Zebra, and then by the Apex Racing Team car. Watch this run. The gap out front is extended to about half a second, because last time 2/10 quicker was Joshua Rogers. 3 minutes left to go, so I think we're looking at maybe just 2 laps. This is, though, the move for third. This is the closest that Jamie Fluke has been. He pops his nose to the outside line. It's side by side, down in towards turn number 1. The Lamborghini just the nose ahead, but sent under the brakes from Phil Denez. They're leaving each other racing room. I think Fluke now will have the outside line, which won't work out. What for Urano to try and take advantage?
Yeah, sorry to Florian, who I was saying that I want the Apex car to come through here. It's just because of our little inner commentary team gamble there. It looks good for the Apex car to try and gain something here. BS Competition, though, they're going to have the inside line down into turn 5 as they're heavy on the brakes. It's got to be all the way around the outside here for the Lamborghini. I'm not really fancying that one. They've tried to make it stick. They are very much there, but for BMW right now, this is exactly what they have done in that BS Competition car a couple of laps ago, even when they were battling earlier in the race. It's just defending so well, and there's just no advantage for the Apex car to try and get their way through. Phil Denez doing everything they possibly can to keep Jamie Fluke at bay, and look who is a part of the scene now. Sven Haase is here.
I do think we are going to have white flag in the air this time around, because Joshua Rogers is coming through the final corner as we speak. So one more opportunity for something to happen. There you go. Right side of the screen is the battle for the race lead. Left side, it's now a 4-car train for the final podium position. And don't count out Sven Haase, who is very, very rapid in the GT3 machinery. One more chance for Collins. I think it's a little too late for anything to happen here. Joshua Rogers is looking comfortable.
Yeah, it could be pole position to race victory for the first time this season, the 4th race of it. At the moment, though, our focus on that podium battle. BS Competition, Phil Denez keeping the Lamborghini army at bay behind, because you've got Apex, you've got Urano, you've got Bila as well. Maniti and VRS SCO switching positions a little bit further down the order as they run down into turn 1. That seeming to go the way of the VRS SCO Sim Sport Mercedes. They're both in Mercedes, but at the moment, looking good for them. A bit of a shame for the 81, but still, points. Just keep scoring them.
I would just speculate as well. We've talked about damage. That would have been maybe the critical factor. It's an aggressive move from Fluke, trying to look to the inside. It's even more aggressive from Sven Haase. He sends it down the inside. It's Haase into the top 5. Still a moment to go here, though, before we settle the battle for third.
Yeah, this is huge stuff between them. That was a good move, very, very bold. There's only realistically one major opportunity for Jamie Fluke to make something stick. It's a good run through turn 9. It's got to be down into turn 10, inside or outside. I mean, neither's really worked here, and definitely not close enough. Coming through the final couple of corners, though, with 10 seconds left on the clock. Well, here they come.
Here we come indeed. It's Rogers through the final corner. It will be the checkered flag for the 91. It's Coanda taking 3 victories in a row. The domination continues from the purple and orange. You can see the relief on his face to finally get the result that I think he's been waiting for. The championship leaders, though, they continue their stonking run. The number 93 car will well and truly be in control heading to Circuit Zolder. It's a drag race to the line. It's not enough for the Apex Racing team to get third. Beeler, I think, hung on by just 100th of a second to 4th position. Incredible action here, and it's still continuing. You can see battles all the way to the line.
The fact the Lego Technic car got onto the rear end of that sort of 14th, 13th, 12th place battle, even further up, that shows how much pace they had in the tank. They'll be so disappointed with what happened down at turn 1, but either way, great recovery drive, great resilience from them. They were lucky not to get any damage. Fastest lap of the race on the final lap. Now, yes, they've not had a great day, but coming in there from Kova just to take it away. The fastest lap point is not for that, it's for the pole position in the qualifying session, so there's no point for that. It's just, why not, just to show off that there was decent pace. Well, it nearly came into contact there to the two VRS SCO and SimSport car. That would have been too great for the photography.
And well, I mean, what a day we had here. And I mean, back to back to start off the season. And I mean, I cannot wait now, Lewis, to head to the other track in Belgium, Circuit Zolder. It is known for some incredible GT action. You never know how things are going to go there. It's difficult to pass, but we've seen some incredible wheel-to-wheel action in 4 races so far.
We really have. It has been a season to remember, even after just 2 rounds, and that is set to continue. We're a third of the way through the championship. All of the talk was about VRS SCO and the SimSport and Kova coming out of Hockenheimring. Well, now it's moving to talk about VRS SCO and the SimSport itself. Are Kova going to reignite their chance? There's no drop scores, no nothing like that, nowhere to hide in this championship. You have to deliver every single weekend, and in such a short season, well, I mean, you can't have a bogey track, and Zolder is one of those tracks that really can be a bogey circuit. It doesn't really apply too much for some drivers. Some drivers love it, some drivers hate it. It's going to be a very, very interesting one to see.
Little bit of fun on pit road, but let's take a look at these race results. We must say unofficial because there was a lot of changes last time around. Don't think it's going to be as chaotic this time for race control, but you never know. It's a VRS Coanda lockout of the front 2 positions, just like they were in qualifying, and they stay like they were. Joshua Rogers less than a second clear of his teammate, but of course the number 93 car has been so consistent on the season so far. Second place, their worst result on the season. Vildenez, another stout defensive job to hold on to a second podium in as many race weekends for the Zebras. They are looking very comfortable in their BMW M4. Jamie Fluke, Sven Haase, they'll finish in 4th and 5th. It was very close between the 3 cars behind them, with Daniel Pastor, Victor Miranda, and Maxime Brienne all coming to the line only a couple of seconds apart. David Williams, what a start it was from his teammate Pash Gergis to rocket his way 5 wide into the top 10, 14 positions gained for the number 18. It was also a bumper day for the Williams Esports Razor car. Daniel Lafuente started that before Ate Kauppinen took it to the checkered flag. 12 positions for the Green Machine. Sindre Setsource in 11th with Tim Matska in 12th. There's a train of 4 different Mercedes, all with varying amounts of damage on the front end there. Jeremy Bootsloop in 13th after a very impressive start from Martin Kroenke in the 81 car. Inertia Euro RC in 14th with Mac Backham. Great to see the Lego Technic car recovering to 15th after being punted off the road in towards turn number 1. Very impressive fight back to only be 24 seconds behind the rest of the field. Alexander Walters for the R8G car. Core Sim Racing in 17th. Urano in 18th and 19th. They very much looked like they would show their pace based on qualifying. Let's see if the race performance comes in rounds 5 and 6. Daniel Ferguson rounds out the top 20 after recovering from that race 1 mistake, with Quintin Vialate, Tumas Tatila 21st and 22nd. Second in the championship coming into this race weekend for Tatila and the Kobo outfit, but they will slip down the order after not scoring points in this race. Let's see what the championship standings look like in a week's time. Yaltian, no flips this time around, but some difficulties in the 57 car. They recovered to 23rd at the first of a number of Ferraris. In Energy SimSport, the 24th position car. Carl Janssen in 25th. with Arnage Competition and Bendeval, the final finishers. We had 2 retirements today. The Biela Racing Team number 45 car, they finished in 28th, and we saw the Valkyrie Esport machine pointed perpendicular to the track at one point in time. They retired very early on. They finished in 29th position. So it is that time. We get to talk to some of the drivers, and I tell you what, Lewis, there's nowhere else to start. Let's start with the 91 crew of Joshua Rogers and Mitchell de Jong. Let's start with you, Josh. Qualified on pole for the 2nd race weekend in a row. It wasn't easy for the both of you. You had to fight with your teammate. How comfortable are you feeling now after getting your season back on track?
Yeah, hey guys, it's nice to finally be able to, I guess, get the momentum back. It's definitely been a tough last kind of week, especially with yesterday in SRO. So it's nice to be able to get the season back on track. Obviously, though, the guys in the 93 have been doing a mega job so far this season. I think they haven't finished outside the top 2, so their consistency is clearly very strong. Something that we'll have to just try and do our best job, and see what happens from there.
To your teammates in the background doing their stuff for social media. Mitchell, a question for you. Obviously, last week was a little bit more difficult given prior commitments. You obviously are competing in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series, 2 wins on the season so far. How different is it jumping into the GT3? You were much more comfortable this time around, and that showed both in qualifying and the race.
It's super difficult. The NASCAR stuff has such a unique driving style. It's one thing on the oval going back and forth, but especially when you get onto the road side of things, your muscle memory and stuff kind of develops into that direction, and it's just so different. But glad that we're back in the Koana house. We had some good prep for this one. Obviously still a little bit tight with all the travel and stuff, but hopefully this is a step in the right direction. I'm glad we were able to get a win again. It's been a minute, so awesome job by everyone, and congrats to our other car too. Did an awesome job once again. So hopefully we can just keep this momentum going and maybe grab a few more wins. So we'll see.
So I've got a question for both of you, and I'll start with Mitchell first to answer it. How useful is it being in the same house, not just from a preparation perspective, but from that team, community and relationship perspective, to be able to be in the same house, be able to always be in tune with one another? It must be a very different experience to what it's like almost being on other sides of the pond.
For sure. That's always the most difficult thing, is coordinating when to drive with each other, really. Being in so different time zones when I'm back in California, or the past when Josh was in Australia. So it's cool. You think you can do a lot of it from your own home, and it's about the same, but when we're all driving together and just constantly having the mind going, working on this stuff, it's just so motivating, working with each other just directly, and so easy to go back and forth and just try stuff. It's just a huge help. I mean, it's a great atmosphere, so it's really cool to be here.
What about you, Josh? What are your thoughts about being in the same room, or same house, I guess, as your teammate?
To be honest, very similar, likewise. For me, the main thing is kind of the extra kind of motivation and drive you get. It's not necessarily, let's put it this way: when you're in a completely different space to your teammates, you kind of have to bring your own form of kind of discipline to drive. But when you've always got someone maybe getting up earlier than you, usually it's Mitchell, jumping out and driving in the morning, it always kind of gives you that extra drive to go do the same, because if someone else is driving when you're not, that's potential time that you're losing. So for me, it's mainly that, but also, like you said, the atmosphere is great. Being able to obviously talk to each other more during the day, really, even if we're not on the sim, not even thinking about sim racing, we can still maybe come up with some random ideas here and there, things to try. So I think our minds are definitely switched on when it comes to racing kind of 24/7, and the house definitely kind of seems to propel that and help us make the most of that.
Congratulations, guys. Victory in race number 2, and your season, I think, well and truly back on track. We'll see how you guys go on in 7 days' time from Circuit Zolder.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
So that was the race-winning duo here in round 4 of this championship, Joshua Rogers and Mitchell de Jong. Let's, I think, next dial up the championship leaders. It's been an incredible season, to say the very least, from Charlie Collins and his teammate Dane Warren. I tell you what, let's bring them in next, and Lewis McLeod is standing by.
Yeah, well, actually got the 89 in with us at the moment. BS competition. Let's have a quick chat with them. Phil Denez, end of the race, once again in huge defense and looking backwards. Was this a gamble on strategy, or is this just getting into position and focusing on the defense once again?
Yeah, we had a different strategy from everyone again, and I was pretty much fighting for my life the entire last stint, and I'm extremely happy that I could hold on, and I pretty much used every trick in the book to hold on to that one. And Felix did an awesome job in the first stint, keeping up with all the quick guys, and I think we're just going to get stronger from here on out.
Race 1 didn't necessarily go your way, and we kind of won't go too much into what happened in Race 1 in the previous round, obviously, with the disqualification. But we're seeing one race for you not be so great. Second race, though, you come really, really strong. Is this learning as the weekends go, or the round rather, is going on, or is there something else at play here?
Yeah, I think we're just, getting more familiar with the car, finding little things here and there. And, we made a little mistake with the setup for this weekend. I think we could have been even stronger, but I think, as time goes on, we'll only be better.
And we'll go to your teammate Felix as well. Obviously, enormous congratulations to the pair of you for another round and another podium. We heard from Kova before the round had started that potentially the BMW wasn't exactly the favoured car for this track, more so that it was to the Porsches. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the BMW's decent around here, Felix, or is there more of a focus on later tracks?
No, I think the BMW was alright here. It wasn't too quick, I think, but also definitely not too slow, so that was quite balanced, I would say.
Do you think it's going to come stronger at Zolder? Do you think it's a circuit that's going to match it, or is that going to be a bit of a bizarre one? It's slightly of an oddity on the calendar, being a bit of a bizarre track in comparison.
Yeah, I like the track for sure, and I also think that the BMW should be quite good there.
Now, what can you achieve in the championship? With a couple of podiums on there, is a win on the cards? Are you going to take it to VRS Coanda, or is it just round by round, see what can happen?
Yeah, I think we're P4 now in the standings, and maybe the podium is possible, but I think the Coanda guys are a bit too quick.
They are quite an incredible outfit, but you're giving it to them anytime you can. BS competition on the podium once again, third for the second consecutive week. Congrats, lads.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Back to you, Arjuna.
Great to see the Zebras always strong in their BMW M4. Of course, one of their sim drivers who competes in the real world as well. BMW Works competitor Bruno Spengler has been giving some insight to this M4 and helping to get it updated to the most recent spec now that it is fully in competition. One final interview, and it is the championship leaders, Charlie Collins and Dane Warren. Let's start with you, Dane, because I know it's quite late for you down in Australia. You guys have had a smashing run so far. I mean, the lowest you've finished is second. The lowest you've qualified, as far as I remember, is also second. What's it been that's gotten you guys to this level of consistency? Because it really is outstanding to see.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the first thing I should say is just, a huge props to Charlie in both race 1 and 2. He's been just phenomenal in round 1 and round 2 as well. Definitely carrying me a little bit. Yeah, just heaps of practices going into these events, and I think it's really showing with our results, especially in race 2. In that last one, I think it was like a 15-second gap to P3. So, yeah, really good start to the season for the team and us.
I do have a question for you, actually, Dane, before I talk to Charlie as well. We saw that your brother was sitting behind you at one point in time. Are you not distracted by that? Because both Lewis and I were, I think, thinking that there's no way that we could drive with someone else in the same room. How do you deal with that sort of a distraction?
Well, I guess it's sort of outside of my peripheral vision. And I think during PESC even, you saw my cat sitting in that exact same seat, so it gets a bit of use. But I wouldn't quite call it distracting, but that's a new one. But yeah.
Well, I'm just glad that obviously no major effects there. Charlie, what about you? I mean, both of you guys are relative newcomers to Coanda. You only joined after the World Championship qualifiers late in 2020. It's been an amazing job for you in 2021, and the streak continues here. You were almost, I think, able to get around Josh there in the closing stages. How close was it to getting a pass done?
It was gonna be tough, to be honest. I mean, I was close. It was just kind of staying in that 4/10 around gap for quite a while, and I was kind of lining up to go towards the last 2 laps ish. Just made a tiny mistake, and I think on the 3rd to last lap, could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, props to Josh. Guy's crazy doing those lap times. But yeah, I mean, good race in the end. 1-2 for the team. Super happy with it.
What are your thoughts on Zolder? It's a very different type of a track to what we've seen in these opening 2 rounds. Very tight. It's going to be even more difficult to pass. What are your expectations as we get towards the halfway point of this season?
I think you said it there. Tough to pass is going to be, yeah, it's one of mine. Joyce is quite a new track for me. Never really driven it properly before, like in a racing scenario. Only a bit of fun here and there. But it's fun, you know, because it's a track that we don't normally race at. So, you know, switching up, you know, is cool. And it's been like the same with the series, with the format. Switching up, not the same. It's been really cool so far. So yeah, looking forward.
Congratulations, guys. Let's hope that this championship run continues, because you guys are looking very much like the favorites.
Cheers, guys.
Yep, cheers, guys.
So that is Charlie Collins and Dane Warren joining us in the broadcast booth. And before we say goodbye, Lewis, I mean, what a race we've seen, not just in race 1 here on the weekend, but race 2 really intensified some of that action. And at the end of the day, Joshua Rogers coming out on top, but all eyes really on the 93.
I mean, look, we were going to see that 91 winning at some point. Surely we were. We knew we were going to see it. They're such a quality team. Those two have been teamed up in various things. But, I mean, quite rightly, Josh did bring up the fact that they didn't have a great day yesterday elsewhere in sim racing. And so bouncing back from that, it was a bit of a turnaround for them, refocusing here. They're taking it to their teammates, but the 93 is in control here. They are looking like they are on an absolute charge and a mission to take the top honours in that 25 grand prize pool and the $7,500 that you get for winning it.
Let's talk about BOP very quickly, because I think in round number 1, it's fair to say it was much more equal between the BMW and the Porsche. This time around, I mean, race number 1 was a lockout on the podium almost for the Porsche guys. This time, we did see the Porsche being a little bit stronger. It might change heading into that next round in just 7 days' time.
You've got a few things to think about here. Number one, that Zolder next round is, like I said in the interview, it's an oddity on the calendar. It's a bizarre track. When you compare a lot of the other tracks that we have, you're talking about a lot of Grand Prix venues. They're all Grand Prix venues. And Zolder is the one that sits out there. Whilst it has held races up to that standard prior, it's more so of a tighter and twistier track. It's one that's hard to pass at. And so, realistically, we might see something a bit different there. For here, I mean, let's be honest, BS Competition said that the BMW wasn't that bad. It was perfectly fine to do so, and they messed up a little bit. So maybe necessarily that's not really the case. It was good to see the Ferraris up there battling. The Mercs seemed plenty fast enough until they broke themselves over God knows what. I don't think that it looked that bad, to be perfectly honest. We know how strong VRS Coanda are, and the fact that it's their Porsches that are at the front. They're not the only Porsches on the track. They're just the ones that are heading the field.
And there you can see the start. It was 4 and 5 wide, and unfortunate victims were the Urano Audi. Andre Melchers was behind the wheel to start, and then it was the Lego Technic car. So it's time to wrap up. We will be back in 7 days' time from Circuit Zolder. 2 weekends down and 4 to go. It's 3 back-to-back weekends to kick things off, and it really has been the VRS Coanda show. Not the 91 and Joshua Rogers and Mitchell de Jong. Instead, it's Dane Warren and Charlie Collins that have assumed a commanding championship lead. On behalf of the entire team at RaceSpotTV, shout out to ATVO, Kevin Niatola, Simon Grossman, and Nick Thyssen for all of their hard work on our 2021 graphics package. For Hugo Luis, our broadcast director, for my co-commentator, Lewis McLeod, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. We'll see you from Belgium in 7 days' time, but for now, so long.